Welcome back to another episode of Napp Motorsports, and today we're not working on a Miata, and we are not working on the motorcycle either, actually, like I thought we would. So, I've got a little, maybe not so little, surprise episode, I guess, or a couple of episodes. We'll see how long this takes. So, what are we doing with this Monster Precision 7275, you ask? With a 4-inch turbo inlet. My buddy Joel dropped off his immaculate S2000. This thing is a beauty. It's an AP1, has all of every good bit on it. Nice red interior. Everything is beautiful, which is why it is currently wrapped in, it looks like a Dexter episode in here. This is collision wrap. It's like tacky stuff, but it comes off without damaging the paint. So I won't scratch anything while I'm leaning over the engine bay. And it is getting big turbo goodness. So there is a schmuck built turbo manifold here. And that turbo over there. So that's gonna sit, I'll throw that in here in a second and show you what it looks like. We're gonna build out intercooler piping. We're going to do wastegate recircs back into the downpipe because we're not heathens. And then eventually we'll probably build a whole exhaust for it. Just not here. I'm going to probably go to his shop and do that. So let me throw that turbo in and I'll kind of explain what I'm thinking. So this is a very loose mock-up. There's no turbo manifold on here or anything. This is just sitting on this cross rail. So in reality it's going to sit up here a little bit. But what I'm going to try to do as best as possible is like mirror the piping. So I'm going to have 3.5 inch coming off the intake manifold. We're going to shoot it through this hole here, which comes around down here, which will go into the intercooler that I built last week. And then back around, and it'll come up the base here. You won't really see this because there's a radiator that goes here. But to mirror it, I'm going to run this monster 4-inch inlet through this hole down, and the filter will sit kind of right around here somewhere. That's going to be tight. This hole is like 3 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to kind of relieve it a little bit, open it up, and then I'm going to build a cover plate for it to hide everything, and it'll look really nice. You'll have this like welded pipe coming off of here right into this Vangin clamp. Everything is getting HD clamps. Turbo inlet HD clamps, this guy HD clamp, that HD clamp, and the intercooler tanks HD clamp, all vibrant. It's going to be so good. Dual wastegates, so dual 38mm wastegates will come and they'll pipe back into the turbo outlet. It's going to be a lot. I've been looking forward to building this for like a month and a half. We've been talking about it for a long time, just waiting on the parts to get here. This turbo is capable of 1,050 horsepower, so it's a lot. He's gonna try and make 500-600 wheel probably. So it's way oversized, but it's mostly a show car that's gonna have some get and go. It is bagged, it's on some Volks, it's PPF. Like, this is not a car that's gonna get rambunctious and dirty and nasty and gritty. So we're going to do our best to make it as clean as possible. This is like the biggest customer build job I've ever had, so I'm super stoked on it. There's a couple things I've done off camera. The front bumper has been removed. The air duct that goes here has been removed because that has to go away for the intercooler. Oil pan, it has an oil pan on it, just not one with a turbo return. So I welded this up the other day, cleaned it all up, really nice. That's POR15 cast. It's been hot tanked. So that I'll do off camera because it's not a big deal. You can drop it with the motor in the car. You literally just get underneath and drop it. So what I'll be showing you guys is the process of, like, I'm going to put the manifold on, mount the turbo up, and then building out the piping, and then also doing the wastegate dumps, and we're going to do an AC relocate. So all of this goes away. We got some nice braided lines coming that'll come around the back. And so on and so forth. I don't know how many episodes this is going to be. That last 2.5 hour video that I did is actually the best video I've ever released on the channel. by a factor of 5. It's right now, currently it's been a week, and it's 5 times ahead of any other video, which is great. So I know you guys like the long content, but I'm trying not to just drag it out. So we'll kind of see what happens. We're just going to go with the flow from now on. I'm not going to plan anything out really crazy. You're going to live in my ADHD mind, and we're going to knock this thing out. It's going to be so good. So good. And it's kind of cool taking a step away from Miatas because I know Miatas, so I might as well try and get my feet wet in something new. It's just a bigger Miata, so this thing's going to be savage. Absolutely savage. I'll put a picture up of it when it's not wrapped. The thumbnail is probably that. It's very clean. Super, super clean. Okay, I've been talking for way too long, so let's get to it. We're going to mount the manifold up and start mocking up turbo stuff. First thing we're going to do is actually remove this AC setup. So he's got a relocation kit coming that's going to route it around the back and then down up front. And from here over into here, that clears up all of this stuff for the turbo manifold, which is a monster. So this has been drained by a shop. And then, so going to walk you through kind of what I'm going to do. It unbolts at the firewall there, which I'll show you up close when I get to it. This comes around here, bolts to this bracket. I've already loosened all the nuts, so we'll take this out. We'll separate these two. These we have to undo from here. There's 2 bolts, one right there and one right there. And then this line comes into the condenser over here, and then this thin line comes into the dryer, so we'll just undo those. This one can stay because this just goes into the bottom of the condenser. It's a high pressure line. I don't believe his kit comes with a new one, but since it's just here, it's not in our way because it ends right there. So we're going to take all that out, and then off camera, I'm going to switch over the oil pans. This is the AC bracket, so I have to take the AC pump off to take the pan off to put the new pan on, and then I'll put the pump back on, and I'll leave it unhooked until the AC lines come on Saturday or whenever. But really removing them is the biggest roadblock for me, so we're going to do that, and then I can throw the oil pan, and then I can throw the turbo manifold on, we can mock up the turbo, and kind of start looking at piping orientation and stuff like that. So against the firewall over here, this bracket kind of plugs the hole in between here and the cabin. All you do is push these pins together, so this one pushes in, and that one pushes in, and then you separate it, and it pops out of the wall. It's kind of tricky, it's a tight spot, but all you're left with now is that bolt right there. It's a little 10mm. We'll loosen that, and this pops out of the firewall. The AC relocation kit comes with this really nice billet plate that covers that. It's gonna be super sick. As you can see, I've gotten these lines out. So that, I've just got to undo the bolt there. And then this is just like clipped into the body in a couple spots. There's another bolt right there. This is loose. So we'll take this out and I'll feed it out. Lines are gone. You'll see I had to, there's a connection right here. It's like a 19 and a 17. I just had to break it. I couldn't snake the line around. But yeah, other than that, AC's gone. For the time being, I'm gonna take the compressor out. And then part of this job is those 2 studs in there. You have to remove them because the new adapter comes with like special hardware. So I have a stud puller. I'll do that once the AC condenser is out of the car. I'm going to swap the pan out, and then I'll pick you guys back up when it's time to mount the turbo manifold and the turbo, and then that'll probably be it for me tonight. I started later than I would have liked, so we'll get that mocked up. We can look how it's going to sit, and then probably Thursday or whatever. And then in the next couple days, I'll start doing the like piping layout stuff and see kind of really what we have to work with. That being said, it's time to mount the turbo manifold for just test fit purposes. So we have this monster from Schmuck Built. It is Cerakoted black by Rock Coatings, obviously the guy who does everything else for me. I had to fix a weld on this down in here. It's not the prettiest fix, but it had cracked there. So actually before this got coated, I fixed that, and it's here now. I have hardware for this. He bought these guys. Apparently they thread right into here. So we'll install these, or I'll install these real quick. And then I'm just gonna put in like probably 1, 2, 3, or 4 bolts into this. Again, it's gonna come in and out a bunch, so I don't need to put all the hardware in. It becomes a pain. So when I mount this in here, few bolts, you'll see it. I'll show you when it's all mounted up what it looks like and where it's gonna place the turbo. I mean, this thing is gonna be up front, dead center, like I showed you yesterday. Turbo manifold is in. It was really tight. I had to relocate this bracket from here to here. I had to remove this entire sensor out. This I had to undo, so this hose or this cable ties loose. But it has 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 in there. It is stout. Those bolts that I showed you earlier, these guys, are too long, so they fit in here fine, but the stud is like way too long and it'll hit the housing. So he has the ones that came out of the manifold originally. Temporary, obviously, but I'm going to use the turbo, or I'm going to use those to mount the turbo. And because I don't know the clocking, I've actually loosened the housing so I can rotate the two together. Or sorry, individual from each other. We'll get that in, we'll snug up a couple of them just so it's fixed correctly. We'll get the oil drain routed right. And then when I remove it next time, I'll tighten all the bolts on the housing so that it's good. All right. Next up, installing the turbo. I'm going to suffer through this a little bit, so I'll show you guys when it's on there. It's super heavy. I want to say the thing weighs like 35 pounds, so doing this myself is a little bit of a struggle, but I'm going to place it up there, thread in a bolt, and then I'll thread in 2 of the other ones. I only have 3. Again, temporary solution. I'm going to order the hardware probably tomorrow, but it's good enough for me to mock it up. Guys, just look at this thing. I've been sitting here for probably like 5 minutes just giggling at the sheer size of this setup. I mean, I threw the wastegates on. This used to have a vent to atmosphere setup through the hood, which we're not going to do because that's not the aesthetic that this car is looking for. This thing is immaculate on the outside, so we are going to be recirculating it. So I've got these... they're called like J-pipes or whatever. It's a 180 and a 45 or 290s and a 45, depending how you cut it. Got some of these Flexi Bello boys. So what we're gonna do at some point, I'm not sure when, is route these. So it'll be kind of pipe out of here, bellow, and then they'll merge into this downpipe. So both of them, I'm gonna try and run like a really nice parallel setup in through there. It's gonna be tricky. One is easy. One is always easy. Getting the second one to look like it's meant to be there is definitely like a labor of love. So, I mean, I'm excited to try it. I might have to buy more pipe just to get it right. This is not something I want to do half-ass. I mean, it's like, look at this thing. So, that's the wastegate idea. Turbo is, I could only get 2 bolts in it just because the nuts are stuck on the one, so I couldn't like sneak it around. This is pretty much how it's going to sit. The drain is a little, the turbo feed is a little cocked like this way, and that's because this stupid crossbar that they have in here from the factory is in the way of the turbo drain. So this is acceptable as long as you're within 20 degrees of vertical, and this is well within that. I can put a measurement on it if you want, but it's probably like 10 degrees. But that's how it's going to sit, and the turbo drain is going to run underneath this cross member, and these motors are so tall that it's got plenty of slope to get into the pan. Not worried about it. And then this is kind of probably where it's going to end up. I'm waiting on the radiator to show up. I think it's going to sit like that. It'll be kind of tight, single fan. Might make a shroud for it. And then this is still loose, maybe. Yep. This is still loose, so I'm going to remove this, and I might have my machinist mill off this face, just like he did on the throttle body for me, so that I can weld a 4-inch, I have a 4-inch Vangin clamp that I want to weld to here for the intake that's going to route in through this hole in the fender. So you can kind of see the plan. Again, now it's a little more clear. It's going to be intake pipe is going to come out and over through that hole right here, and this pipe is gonna come over. So in theory, you have this like really cool mirror setup. I'm gonna try and like get the angles at the same spot. So like this one will start to turn here and come over. Again, something I wanna get right. Something I wanna take the time to do. This is a super cool opportunity, and I definitely wanna make sure I do it right for Joel. And like, this car is local to Rochester, so I'm trying to do more of this stuff. So if I do this right, more will come. It's just how it happens. So, and I love doing it. So for me, for tonight, it's way later than I thought it was gonna be. This is about as far as I'm gonna get. I'm gonna put a turbo guard over the turbo for now, cap the wastegates with some tape and the throttle body, just so nothing crawls in there. This looks sick. I cannot believe how cool this looks. I am so pumped to start like fabricating on this, like actually fabricating. A lot of these things might be a several attempt thing for me just because I want to get it so right. So I have material in the basement, plenty of it, at least to get started. Yeah, we'll see where this goes. So for you guys, it'll be in a second. For me, it'll be a couple days probably. Welcome back. It's been a couple days for me. It's Saturday now. And I have a couple updates and a lot of parts. So first thing, the turbo, I did take the front off. So the housing is off. And I had my machinist knock that off. Shout out to Brett for that. He just milled this entire face down. I'll show you why in a second. And then I lopped the old Vangin clamp off the end of that. And, well, we got a lot of parts too. So got stacks of Vibrant HD clamps. There's 6 of them. He has a Mishimoto radiator and slim fan setup to give me the most space up front that we can. And then he's got some stuff from Schmuck Built, who's the guy who made the turbo manifold. It's just a fuse box relocation bracket, so I'll show you how that goes. It's pretty slick. AC lines showed up, and that is just a gasket for the exhaust manifold, which we won't use until the end because I don't want to crush it more than once. Right now we're just kind of sitting with it with no gasket. The reason we lopped the front of this turbo off is because I wanted to put a HD clamp from Vibrant on, just like we're gonna put here and like on the throttle body, one of these Johnnies, just to keep the look continuous. It's total overkill, but so is the rest of this build. So here's a 4-inch, at least one half of the 4-inch Vangin clamp from Vibrant. That's gonna sit right on top there. We'll center it up when we weld it. And then that'll be your new turbo inlet. And then the clamp will go on the outside, just kind of like this. You'll have 2 movable pieces, and then one of them is gonna run into that fender well. So we're gonna weld that on there. I have a 3-inch one that goes on here, which is here. So 3-inch Johnny. That clips onto here, just like that. There was one on there, I don't know what brand it was, so we cut it off. And I actually smoothed this out. It used to have a pretty nasty step to it. So I opened that up so it's a smooth shot when you put the HD clamp on it. No weird steps, no nothing like that. So while that's cooling, we're gonna work on the AC lines that we have, because that seems pretty straightforward. And then we're also gonna relocate the fuse box. That'll be like the next proper step. And then we'll be able to put the turbo front cold side on and really start working on the layout of the piping.
One eternity later.
Main flange is on. This cast stuff is never nice to weld, so like, I don't say I hate welding it, I just hate the outcome of welding it because it never looks as nice as welding like a nice piece of pipe or something like that, or stainless. You're always fighting like contamination or like air pockets that when you hit it, it explodes and you get this little hole. But that's gonna cool off, so we're gonna do, let's do the fuse box relocation first. It seems easy enough. So what that does is, this is your electric power steering controller. This is your fuse box. And so what we're gonna do is essentially move this down into this pocket and then take this assembly and turn it sideways so it takes up just this much space. Again, not a requirement, but this is pretty close to this header right here. Like, I can barely get my fingers in between, and that's gonna make a lot of heat, so we wanna get this as far away from that as we possibly can. So I'm gonna set you guys up. I'll walk you through what the bracket is. It's very, very simple, and we'll get it moved over quick. So I got the bracket in. It is a very tight fit with these cables down here, and if you unplug them, the green and red one go on the top of the bracket. I had to look it up. So it's tight fit. It's a little uncomfortable, just the way that it's pulling those wires, but I watched a couple videos and that's how they all are. So now that that is done, I'll make sure these are free. We're gonna take the fuse box, kind of muscle it over. I'm probably gonna cut some of this electrical tape back so that I can pop the wires out. It's a little too tight, again, for my liking, so just do that real quick. So they do supply hardware, again, but what they supply and what I have don't have washers. So I'm gonna reuse the factory bolts because these are some pretty big holes. I don't want it to slip through or come loose. Just gonna push that back a little bit. Extension. Just like that, fuse box is relocated. There is some space here, maybe a catch can here or something like that. I'm gonna remove this bracket, it's just a 10 mil. Yeah, so that's there. We can start routing the AC lines and then the radiator. Up next is the AC line tuck. This is from a guy called DC5Creations. Not sponsored, just seems like a nice piece. Earlier you saw us snap this out. So it comes with a billet block that mounts in here. This is one of your feed lines, probably high side and your low side, and then they both tuck behind the motor. And then the thicker line comes to this front port. Come on. And then the thinner line actually runs over this and into here. I thought we had ordered the one with the other braided lines, so you'd have matching braided lines coming from the rear port into the radiator. I don't see it, so I'm gonna reach out to the owner and see if we can get one shipped here. It's not a big deal, it's not gonna stop anything from happening. Just, it'll be the nice little touch, like having matching lines and all that stuff. So I'll see if we can get that on the way. I'm gonna kind of hop through this real quick and I'll show you the finished product. It's pretty easy, he has a good video on it. Little update, that kit is in. We are missing the one line that goes from here to the AC condenser. We just forgot to order it when we did the kit. It's like an add-on option. That's on the way. It's not going to stop us from doing anything. I have the radiator in here. It is pretty much mounted in. You can see it's held in by tape. The little brackets that they send, put the radiator out super far, so like that's where I want it to be. You can see how far out it would stick. So it's like 3/4 of an inch forward tilt, which doesn't make any sense. I want it tight to this bar here so I can put some foam in it and get some good pull through the radiator and everything. The fan shroud is on. And with that becomes, so with the fan shroud on, we can see how much room we have on the turbo, which I've mounted the cold side. You can see here's the intake. 4-inch setup, all vibrant clamps. This is gonna run very tightly to here, and then from there down to our filter somewhere down here. Haven't gotten that far yet. And then the hot air out of the turbo to the intercooler is gonna run out of this lower clamp here, which is super tight. I did install the clamp with it in its current position, so I know it's possible. that's always something you want to pay attention to. Make sure you can fit everything together without like having to remove the radiator or anything like that, because it's a real pain. This is loose, but it's pretty much clocked where it needs to be. And I made sure when I installed it, I wasn't pushing it left to right, because you won't be doing that when you're taking your intercooler piping off. But this pipe will run straight down, and I'm gonna have to relieve this a little bit. I'm gonna try and heat gun it, but I'll probably have to cut a notch, and the pipe will come in here and then into the intercooler. That one I'm not worried about. That's gonna be pretty easy. This one I'm worried about. We're gonna come out of here down, and I was thinking I'm gonna try to mirror it. So where this pipe comes, I'm gonna try and do the exact same, so that when you look back from the top, it's like a bullhorns into the engine. Not sure, gonna have to play around with it a little bit. But yeah, so this is gonna come through here. I'm gonna have to notch this out to tuck this wiring harness out of the way, and then we're gonna feed the 3" or 3.5" through there. I'm gonna build a plate. That box is full of sheet aluminum. I'll build a plate that bolts up here and over here somewhere, so that we can cover it and it looks seamless. Schmuck Build does it. I'll see if I can put a picture up here. Schmuck Build does it. It looks really clean, and I like it, and so does Joel. So we're gonna try and duplicate that. There is some slack here. Like, I can cut this down to the corner here. I can open this up a little bit on the sides, both sides, just a tiny bit, but this hole is like 3.75 inch across, or 3.5 inch across. So if I can cut it a little bit and just get like another maybe inch out of it, that'll make it super easy. Same on this side, same exact process, same exact problem. I'm not intending for this to be like a standard intercooler pipe build. I want this, like, the attention to detail he's put into this car, I need to be able to mimic. Otherwise, I'm not giving him what he deserves for this build. So I kind of want to start with the intake first. I'm probably going to put you guys down for a while, play around, do some cutting, mock it up and see just kind of where we get, and I'll update you as I go. Otherwise, it's going to be like, you're going to see me sit here and think for like an hour before I do anything. So next time I pick up the camera, I should have some intake progress. And we also have to mount the intercooler at some point, so we'll get to that as well. Got the turbo taped off and everything, so you know what that means. Time to play with a new toy. Literally just picked this up 2 days ago. 4-inch pipe will not fit through this hole at all. So I'm going to, you can see my outline, I'm going to chop that over, back, and then in again. And the plate that I'm going to make, I'm just going to make the bottom bend as well, so that when you put the plate on, it's covered. We'll put some foam tape around it so that it seals up nice. Yeah, I called him. I made sure he was good with it. He's like, I trust you. And I'm like, all right, that makes one of us. So I'm going to chop that out as carefully as possible. I might have to take the radiator out, but I will show you the end process, or the end setup. There's nowhere to put a camera that's not going to destroy this camera while it's throwing sparks. So, little YouTube magic, I guess. Alright. I'm not proud of how long this took me, but I cut out quite a bit here. So this is all open. I cut the hood prop latch off. We're going to go gas shocks just to clear all this up. And I will be undoing the fender and like taking out those spot welds so I can cleanly break that off. I do have a dilemma a little bit. So you can see right now it comes through and then it pokes out right here. My concern, because I really want to do that plate, but my concern is when I do the plate, I'm not going to be able to like remove this and slide it out, because it will have to go over. So it's kind of hot right now because I just welded it. It'll have to slide over and like up and away, and there's not a lot of space in between these clamps. Just for reference, that's all the way out, that's all the way in. So it would be a tight fit. I am trying to think of how I would do it, because I do want to do I need to do something, obviously, to cover this up. I wasn't sure if I was going to do, like, make a plate, cut it in half, and then just have, like, the lower section and the upper section, and then they both bolt in together. Today's not been a good day. I snapped the blade on that portaband, and the drop saw in my basement, or horizontal bandsaw in my basement, it's just like the cheapo Harbor Freight guy, and it just the bed today. It's just like throwing the blades. It's throwing the blades right off, and it's like super annoying. So tomorrow I'm going to buy more blades for that, or maybe I might just go now because I can't really do anything else, and then go to Harbor Freight and buy the bandsaw that I've been putting off for a while, which is the drop saw, liquid cooled, all that stuff. Essentially like the Grizzly one, just a different name. That way tomorrow I can set that up and I can get back to work. I'm pretty much going to call it here for now for this side, and I'm just going to get started on this side, which is going to be just down and over. Should be a little easier, hopefully. I am going to have to cut material out of here, not a big surprise, but there's a lot more access over here than there was over here. So for now, let me rotate this back to where it should be. That's kind of where I'm going to end. I'm frustrated in the equipment to the point where I shouldn't keep going, because I'll make some dumb mistake that's going to set me back big time. So I'm going to go take care of that stuff now, and I'll pick you guys up tomorrow once I'm working on this intake, or the intake manifold side. Okay, we're back. I'm getting a very late start to my day. It's like 2 o'clock right now. I spent the morning replacing that bandsaw blade. Like, I had to go buy them. Went to Harbor Freight, bought the big bandsaw, the water-cooled one that's really nice. Spent the morning setting that up, all sorts of stuff. So we're a little behind, but it's okay because it's stuff that'll help us in the future. But today we're going to work on, we're going to kind of forget this for the time being. I talked with Joel yesterday. We're going to go straight through and turbo guard on the other side. So that's a pretty easy fix. But I want to start working on this guy. So I've got, Vibrant sells these 3.5 inch, or I guess for every size, alignment tools for Vangin clamps. So I've got ones for 3 and 2.5 inch. I had to buy this one for this car. I don't have one for 4 because I typically don't do 4, and this doesn't need to be, like, I want this to be in one spot, whereas the clamp kind of splits the difference. So you can go in, out, or around. I just want this to be all the way out. This side, we're gonna kind of do the same thing. We're gonna come out of the throttle body and shoot over into this through hole over here, which, if you wanted to be easy about it, you could take a 90 and just literally jam it through, and then it would fit, like, it would line up perfectly. But that won't look good. Like, that doesn't look good in my opinion. So conveniently, this is like a 90-degree shot, because this angles out and so does that throttle body. They follow the same plane. So I have two 45s, and what I'm thinking is I'm going to start with a 45 right out of here to come down, and I'm also going to come over a little bit, so it'll be kind of like probably 22.5, honestly, by the time you get the angle out to here, and then I will tee in with the other 45 or cut the 90 to whatever angle that needs to be, and then complete the bend so you have a kind of swooping up motion instead of this jarring just 90-degree setup. Sadly, the Skunk 2 points the intake so far over. If it was straight, I think it would be cleaner, like just coming straight out and over and in. But now we have to kind of account for that. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this 45 and chop it right. You kind of see that line where my thumb is? We're going to cut it right there. That's where the bend starts. And then we're going to put that in here and mock that up so you can see kind of what we're going to go for. And then we're going to go from here over into the fender well. So first things first, chop that Johnny. I might try this on my new bandsaw in the basement. If that doesn't work, I'll put it up here. First cut right out the gate with that new saw. Just with the supplied garbage blade, and it's so much better than the one that I had before. The hydraulic feed is super controlled and super nice, so I'm pumped. Unbelievably pumped. But I'm going to clean this up, chuck it up there, and we'll kind of decide the next step. Okay, so we've got this coming out of here now. It's sloped down a little bit. I can loosen that clamp and rotate this if I need to. But I think what we're gonna do is just kind of try and see if the other 45, this 45, if this will work kind of like that, right? So you can already see it's probably not going to. So we'll have to steal the 90. Maybe. Real quick, if you're looking for a good place to get metal, this isn't sponsored at all. I get all of my aluminum from stainlessintakes.com. It's like a super cheap, everything's like 2 days shipping, and they carry absolutely everything. I mean, they even carry these wastegate recircs, or I guess the J-bends for what I'm gonna use for wastegate stuff. Super fast. I haven't found a cheaper spot to get metal from, and it's all this nice polished, this is dirty because my hands were on it, but it's all this really nice polished aluminum right out the bag. I mean, they all show up like this, and then when you slide them out of the bag, they look brand new. But enough blabbering. Let's see if it's possible to do that. Okay, so I cut this first piece. It's the 45, and I left a little bit of a leg on it, probably like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And then this is the other 45 we cut, and I lopped some of the end off just so that it would point in the right direction. And now I've threw some tack welds on it just to hold it in place. It's pretty steady. I know it lines up, so it's actually pretty perfectly centered to that gap. I am going to be opening that up later, but this is like in the perfect spot because of this alignment jig, and that smokes through there. And we're going to take this 90, and I'm going to figure out the angle from here to here, which is flat. So whatever that offset is, and we will cut this pipe at that, like, it's kind of hard to do with one hand. Cut this pipe like whatever that angle is so that it can match up. And it's going to just probably come through here, and we'll weld it up here a little bit somewhere. The plate I'm gonna do after on this side for sure, because I wanna get all the fitment right, and then I'll probably do some cardboard templating just to get it right, and then either 2 halves and weld it together and grind it smooth or something like that. Or I will definitely be able to slip it over the other side as long as I don't put that vibrant clamp on there yet. Little update on where I'm at. I fit that. It's ended up being a 10-degree cut, so it's an 80, and it comes down to here, and you can see the line that I have drawn there. I'm gonna cut that so it's flat so that it can come forward and around into the intercooler, and nice and simple. There will be one HD clamp right somewhere around there, then there will be one going into the intercooler. So the next point of opportunity for me was to mount the intercooler. So I whipped up these little brackets. They are 1/8 inch aluminum plate, and they are mirrored, which the beauty of a mirrored setup is, you know, when you mount it in the car, it's gonna be centered and level and all that stuff. So what I've done is I've added rib nuts to both sides, and those are same location as those holes. Kind of a rough spot to mount it because there's this bumper support bar, this guy. So I had to drill through that just to get the rib nuts in far enough to crunch. But the point I'm at now is to mount this up for test fit. Hopefully it fits because it's pretty permanently in this spot now. Also, croc gang. So yeah, I'm gonna throw that up, and I'll show you how it fits when it's installed. You can see I cut out some pockets here. I want to leave as much of this material as possible. I don't want to remove this because it's ducting air into the radiator. So it's very important that however we cut it, it fits nicely around the end tanks of the intercooler. So I'll show you all of that in just a second. Let me throw this in the car. It's mounted. It is rock solid. I mean, like, rock solid. So what's great about that is sometimes, like silicone intercooler setups, like the piping when it's silicone, the intercooler relies on the silicone to hold the intercooler in place. Like if you think of, like for your Miata guys, the flat Miata setup, it just hangs from the top and it can like move around, and then the piping keeps it rigid in place and it can kind of fluctuate as things move. We don't want that here with these Vangean clamps or HD clamps, because these have movement, so they're not solidly fixed in place, and they rely on fixed like anchors per se. So I've been playing around. And we're gonna come off of here with a 90. And I'm gonna actually just weld the other end of that clamp straight to the intercooler, because we have to, like, I'd love to just go straight off the intercooler because it will line up with that other pipe up there, but we need to be able to make it removable. So we'll come off with a 90 here, probably kink it up a little bit, and then we'll cut a pipe here, and then we'll cut the mating piece, and then we'll put another HD clamp up here so that this little section can be removed. And then you can remove this upper section of pipe, and then the radiator and the intercooler will just have clamp, and we'll kind of mirror that on this side with just coming out with a 3-inch and shooting in underneath. We have clamps on both sides. That one just doesn't go to anything right now because I haven't started that side of the car. But this side, so as you can see, we are technically, let's see if we can see the other pipe. The other pipe is right here. So the ends are technically beyond each other. So what I'm gonna try to do is do like a 45, take the other 90 that I have, cut it in half, do a 45, and then a 45 up to that, just by, like, this can sit like this for all we care, but we have to go over and up, so I'm gonna try to just go like over and jog it. I'm gonna go cut those right now. Hopefully it doesn't smoke it. We can always, worst case, do pie cuts, just to, because this is a weird angle. I would rather not if we don't have to, but it is an option. So I got a little ahead of myself, but this is that 90 that I cut. It's 45 and now 45 up, and it's kind of like pie cuts, just less fine-tunable because you have so much more already preset radius. But I sat here and spun them around until they just like fit up correctly, and I didn't want to put the pieces down, pick the camera up, and show you and lose where they were. So I've got kind of a, so it's a 90, and then I've got a bit of a 45 in and up, and then the 45 in, like, kind of back out. And it honestly lines up perfectly with that other piece with room for the engine clamp. So we'll put that HD clamp in there. I'm probably gonna have to heat some of this up again and push it farther back just so we have clearance. But I mean, you couldn't ask for better than that. So I'm gonna tack this together so we don't lose that fitment. I'll tack a HD clamp on the end of this, and then if it's too close, we'll take some material off the top plate here. So pipe is tacked together, and I threw the one side of the HD clamp on, and you can see that it's too tight now. So the clamp adds way too much thickness. I mean, there's that extra probably 3/4 of an inch in there. So what I'm gonna do is sneak up on this. So I'm gonna take this out and probably cut kind of at the tip of that line, see where we sit. And then once I get this sitting in a good spot, I will take this piece, line it up on top, and see where the top wants to be cut. I don't want to cut too much because then you gotta add metal back, and that's just tedious. So we'll go the slow route, chop this slowly, and see what fits. I'm also a little worried about this clamp fitting all the way through here, but I think we can make it work. All right, so let's follow this down because I got this side pretty much all set. So we've got one clamp here, runs through this hole. I did open this up in the fender. It's kind of hard to see in the camera. So we will be plating that off just like we're going to do on this side. Just a beauty plate from like here to over here, and we'll tie it all in so it looks nice and discreet. And then that runs through the fender, comes to this clamp down here, which is the one we just added. And then you've got your two 45s and a 90 right into the intercooler, and you can see it's got plenty of breathing room, which is really good. And obviously it's very loose and rattly right now. But once we add the O-rings, because I do this all without O-rings, because I'm not a madman. Once we add the O-rings, this will be nice and stout, and like it won't rattle around. If it does, we can build a little bracket, because this is an in-between piece. We can build a bracket from here, like up to here or something like that, just to keep it from, you know, jostling around. I don't think we'll need it, but we can always add it if we have to. So this came out pretty good. I'm not gonna weld it out tonight. It's like 7 o'clock on Sunday night, so I got stuff I gotta take care of. But this is all wrapped up. I'm probably going to work on the hot side charge pipe next, which means the radiator has to go back in. That's gonna be pretty straightforward, like I said. Definitely a 90, and then probably another 90 just to bang a UE. I am 100% gonna have to cut out material in here, just like a half circle, because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to get a pipe down here. Not a big deal. That one should be pretty easy. I'm pretty excited for that side because it'll be nice. We're gonna tack it all together, and then we're just gonna have a welding marathon where I'm welding all this stuff out, and then I might also try to knock this out sometime this week. I think all we're gonna do, I found this last night, all we're gonna do is take a straight, kind of a bad mock-up with one hand, but we're just gonna go straight through, just like that, and that way you have this mirror image from the top, and it'll look slick. This pipe is too short, that's why I'm not using it, but we'll go through just enough on the other side to put that HD clamp, or wow, the turbo guard on, and that'll be it. It's just gonna live up in this pocket here, which is actually really good because it's not in the way of anything. There's no like debris that's gonna live down there, because it would have to come in and go up quite a ways. So that'll be nice. Yeah, more progress than I expected today. I didn't think I'd get that whole side done and the intercooler mounted, so I'll take that. We're back, and today I'm gonna try to knock out the hot side charge piping, so the passenger side from here to the intercooler. It's not a big task. It is, I work a day job, and then I come home and do this stuff in the afternoon, so if I can knock this out today, that'd be sweet. But there's one thing I wanna do first, and I'm gonna show you that right now. So he's running Mishimoto radiator and their dual slim fan setup. The other fan is over there. This is a nice plug and play off the shelf setup, but I have one huge pet peeve with it. These fans are bolted on with through hardware. So that's just a button head screw on the back, which means if you want to install or remove fans when it's in the car, you kind of have to take this off the radiator, which is really annoying, and it's such an easy fix. I don't know why Mishimoto doesn't do this in-house. We are going to drill these holes out and put riv nuts in here so that all you have to do is put a bolt in from the engine bay side. You can remove the fans whenever you want. It looks a lot cleaner because you don't have these like bolts and washers sticking up, and it's just like, to take this radiator out, you have to take that fan out. So to be able to do that in the car quickly is a huge benefit. So I'm going to show you that real quick. Highly recommend this if you have a slim fan setup and this is your predicament. It's very easy because you just drill out the holes that they provided, riv nut it, good to go. So you can see how little room there is. Got like 3 fingers if I push the radiator back. I could not earlier take the radiator out with that fan. So I was able to remove it in the car, but you wouldn't be able to reinstall it without riv nuts because the backer screw will just spin. So now all we have to do, take the fan. It's missing the little legs on it, but just for show's sake, take the fan, slide it down, bring it up, and now you can bolt it in. You can see the clearance that we're working with. Not a whole lot, but easy as that. Permanently mounted the radiator with this nice painter's tape. I still have to design the brackets. Super simple, I just haven't done it yet. Not a whole lot of space. We can clock the turbo still. So I gotta find where it needs to sit so that I can take the clamp on and off without removing the fan, ideally. Not that the fan is hard to remove now, but it's just nice to not have to do one to do the other. And then wherever that lands, I think we're gonna kick. So let's talk about piping routing. Right now, this is pointing like into this brace and into that lower sway bar. So what I want to do is probably take like a 45 or something and kick it. Try to come a little bit straight down, shoot down into that gap. Then I've already done a little work here. I cut this piece well, this piece out of there. And then I think I have one cut already. We're gonna take a 90, just the 90, no legs, turn it, and then short leg to a 45 and come through here. And then if that pipe from up top is coming straight down, we can just tee into a 90, and it would be a very simple like whoop. So what I have is just a 90 with no legs. Legs are just the straights that you see on the end of a pipe, so like that pipe still has legs on it. I just cut them off, so it's just a 90 degree. This is a 45 with like an 1.5 inch leg here, and then these straights are just scrap that I have on here for mock-up so that I can make sure I get the alignment right. But what this is gonna do is slot right through that hole right there and then lock into that vibrant Vangin clamp that I have locked in place. And you can see I've got pretty good clearance all around. It is hitting on the end of that pipe, which is not a big deal. So what I'll do now is just tape the hell out of this end so it doesn't move around. And then I'll work from the turbo side to see what I have to do to meet this. It's gonna take a little tinkering, so I'll let you know what I come up with. But really, I mean, compared to the other side, this is so much easier. So we might do like a 45 in or 45 up at an angle or something. I have one more 45 and one more 90. So if I need any more than that, I'm kind of screwed. My God. It fits so well. I do have to modify, trim a little bit more down here just to clear underneath. Not a big deal. But so what we've got is a 90, that 45 with a leg, one straight section, a 45. I did find actually two 90s in my basement, so I cut one in half, made 145 out of it there, a 90, and I'll pull this out and show you guys, a 90 coming up, and then a 45 to kick it back into the turbo. And the best part of all this, it's very easy to remove that Vangin clamp from where it is. No taking the fans out, nothing. You just depin it and then kind of like slide it out. Super easy. I wish both sides were this straightforward because that would have been super, super nice, but not a big deal because now both sides are mocked up. We can tack them together and they will be essentially ready to weld out, which is huge, huge progress. I'll slide this out and I'll show you guys what it looks like out on the bench. I'll throw some tacks on it and I'll put it back in. That's probably gonna be it for me for this tonight. There you have it. I'm just gonna clean it up, throw a couple tacks on it, just like the other side. The Vangin clamps are just painters taped on because they can rotate 360 degrees. It doesn't matter. The pipe orientation is very important, so we're just gonna throw tacks on that as is, pop the tape off, and then tack the clamps on. Quick one tonight, but that is a wrap. I might build a bracket just to hold it kind of in one of these bolt holes right here in the kind of nominal space that we want it to sit. Just so that it's not, it's not like the other side where it has some supporting features. This pipe is just literally chilling here, so I don't want it to rattle around while we're driving. Mind my failed tack weld here. So it's a pretty tight squeeze, so to center that up would be pretty slick and not very hard. So I figured before I started finish welding anything, I would take a look at the bumper fitment, because last thing I want to do is put this together and find out the bumper doesn't fit like it currently does not. So a couple spots of interest. I already trimmed a little bit here, but this I guess lower middle fin is hitting both sides. So what I'm gonna do is I've marked a little silver line kind of in here, and I'm gonna cut straight across to the inside of that fin right there. So just draw a straight line, that bolt will go away, and then mirror it on that side. That's the easy problem. Also, might have to do something on the bottom to mimic that, but that's really easy. The bigger problem that I'm sure if some of you are S2000 guys, you saw me building this and you were like, hold on. The see if it'll focus. The intercooler piping, let me take this off. So the bigger problem is the intercooler piping, because it comes out so far, is hitting the corner of this, or it will hit the corner of this, which is like the fog light duct, once the bumper fits. I have like an inch to go in, and I do not have an inch here, which not a huge deal on this side, because all I'm gonna do is I'll cut this back a little bit, and then I'll put a straight piece on here, and I will just move this in. This can rotate the way it's mounted in here. This side is a little bit more of a pain, because I'm tight over here, and I need to move this in a fair bit. So again, I'll probably cut this and try and work it out in a way. Kind of sucks because I thought it was going to be all done with that, but we will have to make do because we want the bumper to fit. I hate having like the fog light when you see the cars with like the grill, and then the fog light holes are like massacred out to fit intercooler piping. It doesn't look clean. So we have the car. We realistically have the time. It is going to be 10 degrees outside tomorrow, so this car is not going anywhere anyways. The other fix obviously would be move the radiator closer, or intercooler closer to the condenser, but with all of this stuff in here, I can't really move it that much closer. So we're just gonna have to deal with it. First things first, I want to get the front having space so I know exactly where and how much I need. It's really not moving the pipes in. I just have to move them over a little bit so they clear that lip. Croc gang forever. Thankfully, we've just tack welded everything for now. Not the end of the world, but just a little extra work. This one I might just be able to cut it and just swing it in because there's play on this pipe. A lot of cutting later. It does fit. I might still remove a little bit from this corner here, just with a sander. This side is almost clipped up. It's definitely too far away, and it is, I've confirmed it is hitting the charge pipe, not by a lot, just barely. So I'm gonna see what we gotta do to make that happen. Oh, there it goes. It's like just touching on the corner. So hopefully just a tiny bit of modification there. This side's pretty intense, but we know what we can do to fix this side, so we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'm just gonna cut those tacks, cut a bit of the pipe off, slide it in a little bit more, and then like we'll just creep up on it until we see that it fits. So I put the bumper on and like tucked my hand in and marked with a Sharpie. This is the edge, so it's this inner lip right here of the piece that sticks out. If you think about it, that's not, you know, that far to move. This is gonna come in a little bit, so I'm gonna go kind of pretty safe. I don't want this clanking on that as he's driving around. It's just not right. This side, even less so, so it's like right on the edge, but again, it's gonna come in. We might be able to get away with just cutting and sliding in. If you're thinking cutting's not gonna work because it's gonna be lopsided, because this is a radius, I'm gonna cut at whatever angle and punch it in a little bit. I think we'll have room. I do want space because this is the only pipe that goes to the turbo. I do want space for it to move around, so we'll try to go a little beyond. This one is less critical. Again, we're just gonna do it right, so we're gonna do it anyways. But I have, if you look, I have nothing blocking me from spinning this farther. And I believe it is tipped back right now, up on that top coupler. So it could even come forward and in. So I'm probably gonna chop kind of like here, and then we'll slide it in. If I need to, I can put straight here. And what that'll do is just move this entire radius in so that it's like coming like that. And that should be good. Where there's a will, there is a way. Bumper is popped in. Obviously not perfectly, it's just this one bolt and the little clips in here. But it is popped in and holding. I had to scrap pretty much the entire lower sections of both pipes. So I'll take this off and I'll show you what I ended up doing. It is what I did not want to do, but it's what we had to do to make it work. So let's cut to that real quick. All right, we are looking at pie cuts. These are hit or miss for me. I had said earlier I wanted to keep everything smooth bend, and I guess we will for what is exposed, but we ended up, you know, back here just for clearance issues. I don't want to hack that up just for, you know, on the outside this thing just needs to look menacing and like money, so we're going to leave it. With the pie cuts, it's a fitment thing. It's fine. Those of you that are saying it's not going to flow, this thing will flow just fine. So I'm going to go ahead, take these off, tack it up, and it's like 10:30 right now, but I really wanted to start welding stuff out tonight. So I think I'm going to start welding out at least that upper pipe, and then I'll try to do both lowers. I'm not going to weld this upper clamp on. It's just tacked in place right now, and that is it. I'll cut those tacks off because we're going to need to slip the pipe through there, through the beauty plate that we're going to make. But yeah, you can see there's still play, so this will be fine. I don't have another jig, it's holding that upper clamp. But I'm going to tack this up, start welding these out. It's probably going to be a very late night for me, which I'm going to regret when I go to work tomorrow. But I need to see some welded out progress. I will probably set you guys up for some of the finished welding stuff. Give you a nice little time lapse of some progress. I know I've just been like jumping through what I've been doing and just telling you what I've been doing. This is going to be a long episode. As long as I walk you through what I do, I think that covers the bases and I show you the end result, like this stuff. So, time to get to tacking. Bazinga. Look at that. I scuff it with 3M, the red Scotch-Brite stuff. There's one right there. Scuff it, that's why it looks all dull now, as opposed to like the nice shiny. It's all getting powder coated anyways, and it cleans out any like contamination, so when you weld it, it welds much nicer. The pie cuts added literally 12 welds. 12 sections to weld. This is 4 for this entire pipe. This was gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, and that was then like 10. And this guy, yeah. So pie cuts serve a purpose. They have their place. Couldn't have done this without them. So that's pretty cool. But smooth bends, I have an appreciation for the simplicity of just like 1, 2, 3, 4 welds. So this guy, still not welded up here because I need to slip the plate that goes in here over top first. Other than that, all of the charge piping is welded. The intake is going to be simple because we're just going to go straight. I just need to really cut a 4-inch piece of straight pipe. Haven't done that yet. And then we'll do a beauty plate there, beauty plate there. I'll show you guys how I'm thinking I'm going to do that when I go through it. That is a wrap for me tonight. It is 1:03 in the morning. I have to get up for work in 4.5 hours. And I still have to do the garbage because it's Friday. Okay, we're back. And today we're going to do what I've kind of been dreading. I already, to tell you guys the truth, have started on half of it. Just so I can know what I'm doing. We're going to do the beauty plates for the intercooler pipes. Yeah, so I'm going to show you what I'm thinking, what I've done, how I did it, and then we'll get to actually like making it out of metal. I started on the driver's side, and from the factory, there's this hole here. You can see that one right there. I've cut through to it and made it a slot so that I can tuck the wiring down in. I'll make it a little bigger. This is just for test fit. So these sit in here like this. And then I've taken the top, this is the hood release cable, and I've notched, there's a hole up here from the factory, that guy. I've cut through to there so the hood release cable can sit up inside that slot. Sorry, the lighting's kind of dark. So the hood release cable sits in here. I've removed the hood latch, so we're in service mode with a 4x4 holding the hood up right now. And then I just took a piece of cardboard. So I have this really thin cardboard from the intercooler. It's like maybe a 16th thick, it's very flimsy. And I marked up, I was like, all right, well I want to cut from pretty much here to here. So that is about that wide. And I knew I needed it taller because I wanted to come out and down. So I just cut a rectangle out of this, kept pushing it into the firewall, or into the fender. So like, here's a sample piece. It's super flexible, so you can kind of like understand how you want it to sit. You mark your bend lines and all that stuff. And then you just keep trimming until it pops in really nicely. And if you cut too much, you can always tape material back on. That's the beauty of it. This is what I have ended up with. I have a slot for the wiring. I have 2 tabs where it's going to bolt to the firewall, or to the fender well in existing spots. And then I have this cover for the bottom that like wraps around the frame rail. And this guy now pops in just like that. I've got a 90-degree bend down here, a 90-degree bend here. This will be a little bent. This will be a little bent away right here. And then right around this line, the fender liner takes a bend. So we will bend there, and you can see there's an existing screw hole right there. An existing screw hole right there. And we're gonna transfer this to some sheet aluminum and cut it out on the bandsaw. So all you have to do, so we're gonna take this, take your sheet aluminum. I just got this from Online Metals, I think. Pick a spot, flatten your template out. I'm gonna need 2 hands to do this. Trace it out with a Sharpie. I've got die chem, that blue stuff, which is probably what I'm gonna do because it cuts really nice, or it's very nice to line up with a scribe. And then I'm just gonna pick like a flat edge, like this one down here to start. And we'll probably cut out a square, and then we'll fine tune it on the bandsaw, just like that. It looks like a doodle bob, which is awkward, but you can see these line up nicely. And I've traced, so to trace the line where to bend, I just put this on top. And you can see I had marks here and there, ignore those 4, where I want to bend it. So I just folded this up right at the bend, scribed along, and same here, I did that. So that took forever. You can see the fitment up here is not bad, but down here there's like, I can fit half of a fingertip in there. I think I kind of need that there when I install the pipe. So I think I just have to fill that gap, which is gonna suck. I might have to just cut a custom piece that slides in there and I can tack in. But what I'm gonna do is tack this in the car. So I'll just quickly like 1, 2, and then pull the whole thing out, finish weld it out, put it back together. I'm gonna weld both sides, and yeah, it made a mess. I'm really looking forward to this side because it should just be a straight 4-inch hole right through. And I might do it a little different where I don't try to fit the pipe through it. I run the pipe to it, drill a hole, weld the pipe to the other side that goes out where I need. I thought about doing that here. It's just such a complex angle that I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I'm a big fan of honesty, and I'm gonna be honest, that plate I made did not work out. Yesterday did not end well for me. I was like super pissed actually, because I wasted 6 hours of my day trying to make that plate, make it fit, cut it, and then it fit okay, and then I started welding it, and there were spots I couldn't get to, and it just did not look good. Not my standard level of work. So I cut, you can see it here, I cut that elbow off because I had welded to it and just threw it away. So we are left with this. So I stirred over it last night trying to figure out what I could do, and I had an idea, and I came out in the garage and I made one by myself because I wanted to make sure it worked, and I'm going to make the other one with you guys so you can see what I'm doing. The problem I have is that this piping is so big that I can't physically come through like above this flat wall, so I have to make a weird coped cut. It's very difficult to do. So I'd rather come straight through, like if it's a plate, I'd rather come straight through with a pipe. So I can just take a 3.5 inch hole saw, drill right through this side, 4 inch for this side, and then that'll be it, and it'll fit. I don't have to do any weird stuff. It'll weld up real nice. So what I thought I could do is push essentially this wall out and make a fake wall. So last night I built this. It is a almost box, has a pass through for the wire, has a bump for this little hardware piece here, and the way it works is it sits up against here. Obviously it'll bolt to the chassis using like that riv nut down there. I'll probably add another one somewhere over here, and I'll just weld some tabs on it. But it sits like that. It doesn't like to do it without force because of the wiring harness. But it sits like this, and then the thought was, it's not gonna wanna go, but the pipe would come into here, and I'm gonna actually cut this even more. I'm gonna chop it all the way up here. And we're gonna take this weird looking piece, and we're gonna come straight out just like that, and then that's gonna meet up. I have another HD clamp on the way that's pretty much gonna space those out, so this will be its own pipe, and then this section through to the lower one that we worked on earlier, that will be its own section, because if I just rely on this clamp, they have inward and outward movement, and you can pivot. It cannot go left to right. So with the engine rotating this way and this axis being hard mounted, it's going to put a lot of stress on the welds here and on the hardware. So I need to put a clamp that has this kind of play in it. I could put it here. I don't think it would look good. So what I'm going to try to do is, because there's a clamp here, I'm going to try to put the clamp right around here. So when you're looking, it's like pipe in, HD clamp, pipe in, HD clamp, and then that clamp is going to run up to another one. There is going to be a lot of clampage going on over here. This side alone will have 4 HD clamps, but that's just what it takes to make it work. So what I'm going to do for now is, well, we're going to build that box first. I have the metal cut out over here. And then that one is easy because when the pipe is in, if you look at the frame rail, I gotta line it up right. If you look at the frame rail, it's pretty much a straight shot, so this will go right into the box, and this coupler has the play that we need. So you see I can't go like up or down, but this one is going to want to go in and out just because the turbo is going to move that way. So we'll build this box out. Should be pretty straightforward. Tacked up. Overall fit is where I'd say good enough to start with. You can see we have a gap up here. Well, maybe you can't see it, but there is a gap up here. It's hitting too close over here, and it's a little too high in my opinion, so it's kind of just over that lip. Not a big deal. I had the same problems with that side. What I'm going to do is just weld it out, because that way the tacks won't break while I'm doing it. And then we'll take it back and we'll like cut that corner off. We'll shorten these legs a little bit. Real quick things in the bandsaw, not a big deal. And then it should sit in there nicely. We are going to have to make mounting tabs for both of these. I don't have any tabs right now. I just wanted to prove the concept yesterday, but Let's go weld this thing out. Cool, so this one's tacked up. You'll see the fitment. I'm still gonna work it a little bit, like take some of this down here. We are gonna be putting like a rubber seal around it, kind of C-seal, so that it clamps on and makes a good barrier in there. This side, look at that. Look at it. One bolt. I am probably gonna use the one down there because it has some play this way, but like, that is rock solid. I have tabs. I have these tabs for making radiator shrouds, kind of like this guy, just not sharp and pointy. And what I'll probably do is just run one down there, bend them up a little different so that they sit nice. It is kind of close to the bottom of the box, so I might have to get crafty, but we'll figure something out. I might see if I can get away with putting a little straight section in between these two couplers, or maybe a little bent piece. I'm not sure. I'm gonna play around with it a little bit and I'll show you guys what I come up with. But this is gonna be the really easy side, because once we get it here, I bought all the right tools yesterday. I bought a jigsaw to cut all this stuff out of the bigger sheet, and I bought a 4-inch hole saw for this side, and I bought a 3.5-inch hole saw for that side. Yesterday I had a 3-inch hole saw and I was just trying to like grind it open. It was very not enjoyable. So spend the money, get the right tools. I've been so much more productive in this first hour today than I was really yesterday at all. So I like this. I'm gonna weld that tab on right now so I can bolt this up. There is no existing bolt hole there. I put a riv nut in. You've seen me use those before. Lifesaver. I'll pick you up when I have an idea of what I'm doing with this pipe, and I'll show you what the end result's gonna look like. And then we will do this side, which is a little more complicated, but I think we can figure it out. Okay, I skipped a couple steps. Let me show you what we've made. So this piece now sits in there, and on the other side I put a little pipe pass through, and that clamps the turbo guard. So your turbo guard is on the other side of the wall, and you cannot see it. It just looks like a charge pipe. So this, probably kind of difficult one-handed. Very difficult one-handed. With wiring, I'm gonna put you down, I'll install this and I'll show you what it's looking like and all that good stuff. Super easy install with 2 hands. It's just kind of tough to route the wiring single-handedly. Bolts in nice. The alignment here is perfect, so I don't know if you can see that. It's a straight line coming across. Both, the clamp has, you know, it's not tight, and it's gapped away this way, so when the motor spins over, or like, you know, torques over, it will move in towards this piece and keep it in line. So, I'm not super happy with how these welds came out here, so I might end up grinding them down and redoing them. We'll see. But that's like an easy, you know, job is done, let's beautify a little bit. Powder will hide some of that, but I don't want to rely on powder. So with that being said, intake side is done. This side, I'm debating getting started on. I might wait until I have that other HD clamp, just because I don't want to like guess the alignment and then get it wrong. So that'll show up sometime this week, and I'll be able to finish that up, including the back side, to meet the lower pipe section. So cool, that's it for me for now. I have to go run some errands because it's Sunday, and I'll pick you guys up when I get back to work on this. I thought it was done for the night, couldn't stay away, so I'm working on the other side. And I was originally going to put one of these HD clamps up here, but it was really bothering me that like this would be the pipe section, and like it just didn't look correct. And I know it technically might have been a little symmetrical to that, but I think in reality that would have been here for it to work like I wanted to. And I'm not interested in that. So what I think we're gonna do is put it here, and you can see it's pretty tight. Obviously I cannot fit 2 couplers there, so this other one is gonna have to sit like back here, which again, not a big deal. I'll just chop this pipe straight right there. And then we will weld, there will be plenty of space to weld the coupler on. And the other side of the coupler, this is just this is the one that goes down there that I never welded on. So I don't have one right now, but I can do the rest of the work. So this will actually weld, you can see the hole we cut there. This will weld right to that hole. And what I'm gonna do is machine off, so this lip is here so that you can attach it to a piece of pipe really easily. I'm not attaching it to a piece of pipe here. I'm just gonna weld right to the base metal. So I can remove that, give myself some space back, probably like a 1/4 inch, and then, you know, this will be able to sit there, and we're barely cutting any material off. The reason, again, why we need a clamp either here or here is because we need some sort of lateral move ability for this pipe, which right now if I weld it straight to here, which I could, be very easy, it would wanna, and eventually it would, break these welds just because it's putting so much force. I mean, you're putting, if he's making 600 horsepower, he'll probably make 400 foot-pounds of torque, and it's gonna wanna, you know, the engine's gonna wanna move, and he's not solid mounted, so we need some way for the engine to take that load off. That side, we left this open, like we left the gap big. This side, we're probably gonna wanna leave the gap small because we want all of the play this way that we can. The engine's not gonna really move in. We'll leave some space, but not a whole lot. So what I'm gonna do today is weld this out and weld the down pipe, I'm gonna call it, from here to there, so that once I get the HD clamp, probably Wednesday or Thursday, hopefully, I can just cut this, weld that together, charge piping will be complete, and it can go off to powder coat. So, task for right now, this era of the video, finish weld this piece, weld the pie cuts that I started, and then kind of orient it in here, and I'm gonna weld this seam, and then I can grind it flat if I need to before I put the ferrule on it. So, these are called ferrules apparently. So, because this is gonna sit up here, I don't have any way, the way the box is made, I can't weld the back side. And that one, not too critical because it's not a charge pipe, it's just fresh air. This one is very critical because if there's a leak in there, it's gonna cause problems. So I will weld the pipe coming through, I'll pre-weld all the pie cuts, so that's all done. And then I'll sit it up flush in here and I will weld it around in this piece. And then that way there's no leaks. And then this will just go on top, and I will also weld around on the outside, just like that. And you'll have a tight connection. So a little weird, a little quirky, but in the end it's gonna look a lot cleaner having it that way than it will having, like, you know, a coupler up here for this tiny little pipe. So, gonna knock that out, finish weld this. This is, everything's tacked, so this is tacked together. The Pi 90 is tacked and sticking. So this is tacked together. And then the only thing that we're gonna have to make is understand how long of a pipe needs to run down. This is stuck, but to meet this piece here, because it's gonna go 90 and then there's a straight section here. Really just measure, line up. I can seal that top clamp because it's not gonna matter. I can position the bottom where I need it, measure that, weld it out, and then really all we'll have to weld out is this piece, and we'll be super close to done, which is nice. While it cools off, now would be a good time to talk about what I've done, what's going on, what I'm planning. So you can see the welder, I've moved it. Good old Harbor Freight welding card doing me right. So I took the headlight out just because I was super tired of, you know, fiddling behind it, trying to get a good measurement for this piece. And then, you know, I probably would have cut like 4 or 5 pieces before I got something right. And then getting it in there, taping it up. This is way easier. So now it's just like, I can work in here. I measured it once, cut it, fit, great. So this is tacked in. The ferrule is tacked to the pipe. It's tacked to the pie cuts that we put on. Those are hot. And then I had this sitting in like the perfect spot, and I did not want to lose that, and I wasn't gonna trust like marking it to then remove it, weld it out of the car, and then put it back in, find it all doesn't fit. So, brought the welder over, tacked that in place. So there's 3 tacks, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm gonna remove this, take it out, weld it out on the bench, and then a buddy of mine, shout out to you kid if you are watching, apparently has one of these clamps sitting at his house. So he's gonna get home from whatever he's doing, shoot me a text if he's got it. I'll get it tonight, which means we can finish the charge piping tonight, or tomorrow, but hopefully tonight. So this is all set. I did re-weld this. I did not wait till the end. That looks a lot better. You guys can judge my welds if you want, it's fine. This is all gonna get powder coated gloss black. Found out today, gloss black everything. So if I can finish this today, I will literally take it to go get powder coated tomorrow, which would be sweet because then he ordered an exhaust for this. Already made, already fits this schmuck built turbo manifold. So once we get that lined up, we can start working on the wastegate dumps. There's a couple other little things like a fuel pump. We got to figure out a battery, a catch can. So there's still a list of things to do to this car, but I think this whole, like, look at this. I think this whole thing was the biggest part. Thankfully, we don't have to build an exhaust. I did order these. These are on their way, and they will hold it super close. So that gap is good, and we'll be getting pretty close to partying. I did get the AC line. It's over there somewhere. So the other AC line is in. I think we're gonna have to do, dropping everything, some custom routing on the pipe for the intake, or for the upper coolant neck, just because this is really tight. But I think if we just do like a little jog down, he has a upper radiator hose from Spoon. No idea how that runs, but we will make it work. This is, welding something on here is the least of my worries. So that's all super simple stuff. But yeah, take that out. I'll show you once I've welded it what the whole thing looks like, and then we'll put it back in the car, and in theory everything but the ferrule or the HC clamp will be welded. Pipe is in and welded. This has play, which is important. That one obviously will not because it's bolted into the car. And then this one is lined up, and the HD clamp that my buddy thought he had was a 4-inch, not a 3.5, so we have to wait for that last piece. And then once that's here, I mean, we could probably do it now. This wastegate has to go on, or blow-off valve has to go on, sorry. So I don't know where I want to put it. I don't really like anywhere that might work. This thing is huge. I have to cope it to meet the 3.5 inch. I think it's 2.5. Let's see, let's check on this pipe. Yeah, it's 2.5 inch. So actually that's 2 inch. So we'll just open that up just with a grinder, not a big deal. This is where a lot of people put it. I think it looks weird. So I think we're gonna go over here, and then you can run your vacuum line back clean along the firewall. The center stays empty. I'll FaceTime Joel real quick and see what he thinks. We're not gonna put anything here like a catch can, so this space is open. But yeah, cool, good progress. I want to do this, and I will end up building a bracket here probably tomorrow to just hold this kind of in the center, because right now it just like sags. So we'll just put a little sheet metal bracket, put a riv nut up in the frame here, and it'll just hold it in place. We don't want rattles. This side won't rattle once it has the pipes in it, or the O-rings. The only rattling you're hearing is on itself. So it doesn't need brackets, that's fine. This one, we will see if it hits this. If it does, I will probably just build a bracket from here to here, or something like that. I'm not sure. I really hope I don't have to, because it's gonna kind of defeat the purpose of putting the clamp here, because it's got to move with the motor. This one and that one, this obviously is not going to move with the engine. This one, there's enough play here on this lower clamp to make that not a problem. So maybe I'll finish out tonight welding that piece on. I am going to try to shut the hood to make sure that I don't have any clearance issues. I know it's like a day late, dollar short, but yeah, headlight's not going to go back in until I have it all back from powder. It's just not worth trying to fidget behind that. The wiring that I've relocated, I will probably ground this down here. This used to be in the engine bay. I'll do the same on that side. And then this port actually goes into the fender well, so I'll just run that the other way and you won't see that. So back, it's Tuesday, so 2 days after we did the rest of this. Shout out to Upstate Speed. If you're in like upstate New York and you need parts or whatever for your car, he's like the plug. He overnighted this, so like overnight parts from Canada. So I've tacked it on. You can see I shortened this one a lot, so I took this entire step off because I don't need it. There's no pipe registering into this end. So I cut it down, and what I did is I put the clamp on it and then drew a line where, like, if it was full engaged, where the clamp would sit. So this way the clamp still has full movement on this piece without hitting the wall. It is a little misaligned, so I don't know if you can see that very well. This one is a little bit towards the back of the car. That's okay, because the second we put a regular clamp on here, that will free up. There's no real way, like I could probably loosen this and slide this around a tiny bit, but there's no real way to get them to line up nice. Well, actually that lined up pretty good. So what I'm gonna do now, this only has one tack on it. So I'm gonna go tack this in place, double check it one more time, and make sure the clamp fits on it as is, and finish weld this out. You'll also notice I added a bung here. He is going to run an idle air control, so we needed idle air control from the pipe to the IAC adapter from K-Power, which is then going to run into that right there, so that there is some idle control when the throttle body is closed. It is a street car, so I think that's really important. But nonetheless, I'm going to tack this out, test fit it one last time, weld it out, and then that will be it, and this will go to powder coat tomorrow. I already have the rest of the pipes pulled over there. Everything is missing. Gone. I did weld a bracket on yesterday, so that lets it sit. And that riv nut right there, there's still mobility in all axes. The aluminum just bends enough. It is 50-52, so it will not crack. But all right. Oh yeah. Doesn't get much better than that. We got play. The radiator is not mounted, but it does have room even when it's not mounted. So we won't need a bracket or anything because it's not going to rattle once the O-rings are in it, and it's going to be mint. So this is done. Those pipes are done, which means the intercooler piping and the intake is finally finished. After essentially doing it twice, learning a lot, it's going to be so good when it's all in the car. So I'm going to bring this to powder coat tomorrow. It's Wednesday. Wednesday the 7th of February. Hopefully, or sorry, tomorrow is Wednesday the 8th of February. Hopefully next Wednesday-ish I can pick this up, because then I can mock it all up, install it, see what it looks like. We are not going to do the end tanks on the intercooler. It would be cool, but I do also think it looks cool sticking through the bumper and showing itself off. So just the piping is getting done. The exhaust should be here soon. I'm out of town this weekend, so it should be here next week when I get back, which means we can start on the wastegates. I have a laundry list of other things that I'm gonna do off camera. Just little stuff, like yesterday I trimmed these studs down, things like that that are not really crazy important to a turbo build. We are going to get the fuel rail sorted. I am going to be building a custom throttle cable bracket because for some stupid reason the Skunk 2 does not come with a throttle bracket mount. So what I'm going to do is do some, like, it's just going to be a piece of like 1/8 inch stainless. It's going to come out and it's going to bend 90 degrees and it's going to mimic this pocket shape here. Also mind my hardware, that's not correct, but it's going to sit in this pocket, and then you'll put the stud, like the bolt, through it, and it will hold the bracket out here just like that. Pretty simple. I just need to measure this up, which I can do once this piping is now gone. Draw that up, get the length measurements that I need. I might print a test piece. I probably will print a test piece before I'm done. And that's a checklist. Injectors, apparently this needs K-series injectors because the S2000 Skunk 2 manifold does not use S2000 injectors. Getting a set to test fit. Once we get those, we'll plug it in. There is a fuel rail feed line kit on the way, so I don't have to make anything custom. We are gonna trunk mount a battery. I was looking for options that would fit up here. The Odyssey PC680, I believe, would fit, but he is on not full air ride, but he has air cups up on top, and the compressor in the trunk is gonna obviously drain that battery pretty quick because it's not enough for the car. It's enough for the car if it has no extra accessories, so something like a compressor is gonna kill the battery. We're just gonna trunk mount it, put a big battery in there so that we don't have to worry about it. Master breaker switch, stuff like that. I do think I'm gonna keep this all one episode because the last video I did that's 2.5 hours long is absolutely killing it. Right now it is at 177,000 views, which is unheard of for this channel. So I'm gonna keep this train going. YouTube seems to like the long stuff. You guys like closure. You can sit down and watch an entire episode, watch me build an entire car. It does push the episodes out farther, but I'm not working to a schedule. I'm just kind of filming as I go. So it's gonna push this episodes out farther. Like when I do the motorcycle, I'll probably break that into 2, maybe 3 episodes. And then, but that's just gonna be, you know, over time. I do need to figure this out. I might do this once the radiator intercooler piping is back. I'll just wrap it all up. I need to figure out where the line is going to go for upper coolant hose. Just little stuff, little naggy stuff. I actually have an entire... I have a list. So keeping a list is important. So these are all the things I have left to do. Just, you know, I gotta finish. Oh, we gotta make a catch can, so we can do that too. All sorts of stuff, but we'll get there. We are, you know, I knocked some things off yesterday. I'll knock a couple off today, and then, you know, as we go, some of these things are very quick, like gaskets. Just installing gaskets. Knock 3 of those off real quick. Not a big deal. We'll check our way through it. It's the beginning of February. I'd love to have this car gone by the end of February. That's my goal. But we'll see how we go. I will see you guys probably once the exhaust is here. I think I'll pick it back up and the intercooler piping is done. So see you in a minute. So the piping is off at powder coating right now. I should have it back next week. I do leave for Cincinnati in the morning, but I wanted to do one thing before I left because I want to make sure that it does fit, because he got an exhaust. It is a Renegade. Where's the label? Renegade Motorsports. This is non-resonated, so just the muffler, which is fine because that is also a muffler. He got this used off of a guy. It looks like it was never ran. There's no like heat damage or anything like that. And typically this is for a stock S2000 setup. So this would be your header flange. But apparently this guy had a schmuck built turbo manifold like that one. So he had this custom pipe made, which means I won't actually have to fab, hopefully, that's why I want to test fit it. I won't have to fab anything for the exhaust, just the wastegate recirc. So I'm going to throw the exhaust in. It's tough to seat on there, so I'll probably take you guys for a ride once it's on and I'll show you what it looks like. But once I have that up, that will dictate the clocking of the downpipe. And then once we have the downpipe clocked, it's as easy as just building the wastegate lines. So I can't do that until this is in the right position. So if this doesn't fit, I want to know now before I leave so that I can get some material on order to remake this piece. because that's all I should have to make. Regardless of if this whole thing doesn't fit, all I'll have to do is remake this unit, which is I would just buy a new V-band. This is a 45 that he cut in half, so this is 222s, and then I would just cut this flange off and save it. So yeah, this is gonna go in the car now. I like this muffler too. Look at this like diamond shape. Came with the hangers. Like, this guy never ran it. There's no way. So we sent it with all the hardware, or most of the hardware. I can make this hardware work. And yeah, so I'm gonna throw this in the car, line it up, hopefully everything fits. This is a super nice piece. These welds are super nice. Like, look at that coloring. I know color's bad, but like, look at that. This is a slick setup. Hopefully it goes in pretty easy too, because there's 2 flanges. This is why we check. That exhaust would probably be long enough for a Miata, but I didn't notice because this is like a Borzoi Miata. It's a long nose boy. It ends right around here. So not a big deal. I don't have it bolted up because I don't have the 3 bolts for that flange. But this goes, I'm assuming, where the old Cat would have gone. And then it sits like this. So I ordered some material, and it's just gonna come, it's gonna be a 45 up and a 45 over with a flex pipe in between somewhere. And then that's just gonna meet the exhaust. Super simple. I got 2 V-bands, or well, 2 male V-bands. So these are both female. You can see they have the recessed lip there and there. So that way they'll settle in nice. And I've got 3 quick release. So this is not a quick release clamp. This is like I have to take the nut out every time. The quick release ones have this system on them, which is very nice for because you can essentially just loosen it, pop it, and like to install it loosely, you just set it up there and clamp it together. So I got one for here, one for the downpipe piece there, and then another one for where it meets the, we'll call this the mid pipe. So that'll be on the way. It's Thursday, so maybe early next week would be cool, like Tuesday. In the meantime, what I'll be doing is like taking the exhaust, or taking this off, putting the exhaust manifold gasket on. I'll put the turbo gasket on. That way all the spacing is correct. There's not really play in this like there is in the intercooler setup, so I want to get all that correct. We'll get all that sorted out. Next week we'll build that downpipe. Should only take like an evening, and then we can start the wastegate stuff. So a little bit of a setback, not a huge one. It's not like we have to do any complex snaking or anything. It's a pretty clear shot. So that'll be pretty quick. I'll get to play with my new big Furic, the BBW cup. And I got some nice filler rod and stuff like that to make it look really pretty. Not that you'll ever see it 'cause it's under the car. But we'll knock that out, and then we'll build the wastegate dumps. So just going to start checking off stuff. Oh, he also got a bunch of other parts that I'm going to do off camera. So fuel kit from Radium for S2000, literally plug and play. So I'll just adapt that into the car. Fuel Labs, this is, what do we got here? Gaskets for something. Oh, he has a Fuel Labs regulator. Exhaust manifold gasket is important. When I took the length off the studs, I left a 1/16 of an inch proud, so there's a 1/16 of an inch sticking out, and conveniently, this gasket is a 1/16 of an inch. That was just a gamble. So when I install the gasket, these studs will now sit flush to the top of the nut, and it'll look like just little details. Hood struts, so I can get rid of my 4x4 hood strut, and a map sensor, which on the Skunk 2 manifold goes right here. There's a bolt in there right now, so we'll just, I gotta order bolts for this. We'll take this out, I'll order those today. We'll take these out, put the real bolts in, and then just like little things that we just have to check off the list that are required to get this to start. So good bit of little detail work. I'll definitely film doing the downpipe section, and then so the next thing you guys will see is the downpipe section probably. Quick update, as it's been a couple days on my end. It's Wednesday. A lot of stuff showed up today. I've got boxes, like my garage is a disaster. But most importantly, the material for the downpipe, secondary downpipe, showed up. So right now, that's cooling off. I have the included downpipe, which ends right about there, and it ends up at an angle like this, which is really annoying. It doesn't like connect straight. So that's there, and then I have that piece going, which I'll show you once it's cooled off. Comes up a little bit, over 45 degrees down, 45 degrees back, flex coupler into a V-band that's on the existing pipe. So I just welded it all out. It's been a while since I've done some stainless steel, so some of the welds are not as pretty as others, but it will definitely do the job. And I back purged it, so there's nothing funky inside, no buildup. Another thing I do have to do is take this header wrap off, so I'll do that now. I'll just cut these pieces off, pull it all back, and then that way I can weld, you know, I'll have to weld to this later, so that way I can weld to it before we either Cerakote it or rewrap it again. Also, fuel line is done, or sorry, feed line is in. It's not hooked up anywhere. I'm waiting, well, literally for this so I can see how to route it. I'm gonna tee into, there's a sensor right in there. I've got this adapter fitting in my pile of stuff. So, this is actually BSPT, which is standard for the F20. This is also BSPT because that's where the dummy sensor goes. And then this is NPT, which is mint. There's obviously no thread tape on there right now. I'm hoping it comes out and sits like this, and then the feed line can come straight out from there, over and up. Bunch of little progress. I got the map sensor on down there. It's an M4 by 0.7 if you are in the same predicament as I am. I will be selling these, so if you're a Skunk 2 guy or an S2000 guy with Skunk 2 parts, I will be selling that. It holds the stock line in the stock-ish position. Very easy plug and play. You don't need to buy any sort of weird adapter kits. There you have it. And I think we're gonna go with an oil cooler or an oil filter relocation that turns it sideways. It's like in this cavity right here. So, you know, probably gonna get really hot. I'm going to message the guy who makes this manifold and make sure that with his downpipe it does fit. So we will see. That'd be nice. Nice little, keep it out of the way, make it easier to service actually. So the next steps are that you guys will see will be the wastegate recirc. We're just gonna come out and in right here, just probably like a little kink to get them parallel. This will come out and go parallel, and there'll be a flat plate, or like they'll be flat, and then they will take a dive down in here. So it'll be a pretty short shot. I have a bunch of pipe. I bought more actually. So I'm gonna try and probably come out at an angle, maybe 45, if that'll work, and like a little jog out here that's like 30 or something, just to keep it nice and tucked and tight, keep them away from the belts. They put a lot of heat out, so the closer we can keep it to this, the better. I'm gonna do a bunch of stuff on the side that's on my checklist to knock it out, and I'll run you guys through most of it when I'm done. But for now, that's gonna be it for the major stuff, and I'll pick you up when I get started on that, maybe Saturday. Welcome back. Again, it's been a couple days. I've got a couple updates for you. For starters, the hood is on hood struts, which are very nice, very easy to install. I don't know where this kit is from, but it just mounts here. Like, it's the first kit that came up, I think, when I searched for these. Super easy to install. Remove a bolt, install, snap on the piston, both sides, good to go. No more 4x4 block of wood sitting over there. The fuel pump is in. It's a 340 liter per hour fuel pump. The fuel line is converted to AN. I am just waiting on the radium on-rail fuel regulator to show up. Should be here, I think, Wednesday. And then you can see I've got the skunk manifold half torn apart. I've got all the fittings ordered to cap off all the open ports on there. This is actually bolted to the car now. Oh, don't want to do that. Confirmed that the S2000 plug fits the plug that comes with the K-Power kit, which is right here. So this is what we're going to be running for idle air control. Probably going to mount it like down here, out of the way. Run one line up to the intake charge piping where we put that bung right here, and then the other one's going to run to the intake manifold, just to one of these ports over here. Fuel rail is out, everything's out. I've capped everything off. I'm waiting. I don't think these go to anything, but I'm capping them off just in case, so I need another bung for that. Bunch of other little things just like that, checked off the list. I gotta put the belt back on. I had to take this off to get that lower bolt tight. Not a huge deal, but now we are going to finally start working on the wastegate recirculation into the exhaust, which is, I'm kind of dreading. I've kind of been dreading it. I know it's gonna look cool when it's done, but it's gonna be a lot of work. So what we've got are twin tile 38mm wastegates. We ordered new flanges because this setup is used, and it used to have hood dumps, the previous owner. So we don't want to do hood dumps. It's not this kind of car. So what I have is like 2 of these J-pipes, 2 45s and 2 90s. And this is all 38mm. I got it all from siliconeintakes.com. That's where I get all my like intercooler piping from. They also sell this stuff, which is great. So my thought is this 45 right here. Maybe I'll use one of the ones on the bench. I'm gonna cut it right around here, and you can see I've got these pretty much lined up so that they're like on the same plane. And what we're gonna do is come 45 into a flex pipe. So 45 into a flex pipe, and then same here, 45 into a flex pipe, and I'm gonna stagger them so that, it's kind of hard to show, but so they sit like this, so that we can keep the, you know, spacing tight. I don't want to have to like come way out and around. So it'll be 45 flex pipe, 45 flex pipe, and then we're gonna start a very immediate turn down into this. So on paper, it seems very straightforward, and I think it's very doable. And then what we're gonna do is build out this section and like to the flex pipe. And we're gonna have to kind of work backwards because I have to cope to this, which is gonna suck. It's gonna be the worst part. Is this is like a weird radius to then come up also in a weird radius this way to fit up and everything, and it's gonna be a lot of guessing and probably very frustrating. So once we do that, we will trace where the cope is. We'll cut that hole in the header, or downpipe, sorry, and match it to the circle. Put this all back together and tack that together in like 3 or 4 spots, remove the whole setup, and do this finish weld off the car. Because if I just guess, there's no way it's gonna line up. Like if I just mark it and like, oh, put a tack here, not gonna happen. So we will wheel the welder out, tack it a couple times, make sure it's rock solid, and then take it out and finish weld it on the bench. All right, here's where we stand so far. We've got the 45s tacked to the elbows, which are tacked to 2 90s. So I cut, this is a 90 with a leg, and this is just a 90. So from the front, it is symmetrical. These are lined up. They're probably not perfect right now just because it's a little loose. And then what we're gonna do is come down and shoot into here, and then shoot into here. So what I'll do is I'll take a sacrificial, I'll go down and cut off like a 1-inch piece for here. I'll tape it to this, or well, probably realistically tape it to this guy, or tack weld it even, just 1-2 little tack welds. And then I'll take some filler rod, and I will essentially extend, just like taping the filler rod on, until I can find out how, like, use the filler rod as pushers to understand how far in it has to go. And then I can take that filler rod, mark the end of a pipe, and cope the pipe just with that shape, if that makes sense. I'll show you when I figure it out. I've done it once before and it was a little tricky, so I'm probably not explaining it well, but okay, this looks incredibly weird, but it works. So you can see I've got a bunch of pieces of just straight aluminum TIG rod taped to that section, and then they go down until they touch the dump pipe. So what I'll do now is I'll take that off, slide a pipe inside of there, tape those down, and then essentially trace a line around what would be coped, and then spend forever cutting and coping and cutting and coping, and then I'll leave the end long, the flat end, and then I'll sneak up until it fits into that opening slot. So that's it's tedious and a little bit tricky. The good news is if there is any, like, you know, if there's a gap here or there, we can fill it. Not gonna be a huge deal, but this is the easiest way that I have found to cope it. If anybody else has any suggestions, I'm open for it. You can see I just have like a pile of TIG rod. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut that up. I took the other pipe out because it doesn't matter. I got this one squared up to it, tightened it up, did all that. And then once we have this piece made so that we know it's the correct length, we will make the merger unit, which is gonna kind of come into here and around, so it'll be like an oval. Yeah, you'll see it. So I'm gonna mark this, show you guys, cut it, cope it, make it fit, and then I'll show you guys once it's all fit up. It's probably gonna be a long process. I don't know if I'm gonna do both tonight, but we will see. To show you guys what it looks like off the car, you can see it. You know, if you were to continue all those dots together, they'd make a line. And then I'm gonna take a piece of pipe, not this one, but slide it over and mark that line to cut. Pretty straightforward. That worked a lot better than it did last time. I don't know what I did different, but it worked. So you can see there's a little gap here. I'm not too worried about that. And I had the pipe like probably 1.5 inches long, and I sat over here, you can see all the trimmings, and just kept shaving off little sections until, and like I would slide it up in, it would be off by a little bit, and I would go back, cut some more, rinse, repeat. But that is the one tied back in, and it's coped all the way down. So what I'm gonna do is tack that in place so that doesn't move. And then when we set this piece in here, we can clock it to where it needs to be, and then we can start building the next one, which is gonna shoot right into this V here, is the plan. You can see it if I take it and line it up, kind of eyeball it. So it's gonna shoot right through that gap. So when we weld this, it's gonna be, we're not gonna be welding this like pocket here or anything like that, because it's just gonna be one continuous piece all the way around. And then we'll weld like a saddle joint over top where this meets that. So it's gonna be a little complex in there, a little cozy, but we'll make it happen. And for those of you concerned about the fitment with the V-band clamp, this is the biggest portion of the clamp, so we'll just, you know, take it off, rotate it, and we'll have tons of room. So I'm not too worried about that. But now we gotta line that up. So it's gonna be a shot through to there, and we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna take that little 1-inch piece, tape it on, and play with some TIG rod till it fits. Words cannot express how annoying and how long that took. You can see they are tied together. This is tacked. It's literally like such a good fit that it's just sitting in place right now. So I am going to weld out both of the tubes just on their own as is, weld them out, put them back on, and then I'm gonna have to cut this one to that cope as well, which will be easy because I can just, that one I can just trace, no big deal. And then we'll have to trace this guy once these are both welded together and in their final spot, and then cut through that and drill out. So, or kind of Dremel out. It's gonna take a long time for that piece. So, yeah, I think it looks sick. I hate twin scroll manifolds now. This is a pain. If this was one, my God, this would be so easy. But that's, yeah. I'll show you when we're welded up and everything. They are welded out. I'm not sure if we're gonna ceramic coat these or not. I should probably talk to Joel about that. Things move, especially stainless steel when you weld it, so the fit up is not where it was earlier, which is okay. I've marked this with Sharpie so I can cut it, but when we tack it, we'll just pull it over a little bit, and because there's flex bellows there, we have room for that, so it's not a big deal. This is gonna be it for me for tonight and for this weekend probably. I have to assemble that engine. I owe it to the guy to get that to him, so tonight I'm gonna clean this entire mess up, like sweep everything and get it back to a state that I'm comfortable like cleaning out and assembling an engine in. And like all this stuff should be put away and stuff like that. So it's just been a mess with trying to get this done. But if I finish the engine early enough tomorrow, I'll probably start doing this stuff. So the engine build, I'm waiting on some bearings because the clearance was too tight. So I'm back to this. It is a day later from when we made this. And I cheated a little bit. You can see I welded these already. So these are touching together. This is technically done. The last thing we have to do is cut a hole in this downpipe. So you can see this is a little bit, you know, it wants to sit a little bit out. Not a big deal. I have the welder pulled out because I tacked this on the car. And then what we're gonna do is cut this hole and then come out here and tack that together on the car also. So what we'll do is we'll tack here like 3 or 4 times, make sure everything's nice and tight, and then we will take it out of the car and finish weld it off the car and put it back in. Pipe is out. The outside line is what I traced in the car, and then I just kind of hand did that inside line. It's about 1/8 of an inch shorter, and I'll cut until that line is missing. So I'll cut way inside and then I'll come in with the grinder and cheat my way out. Just slow and steady. That's how we do it. If you try and just do it in one shot, you are going to screw something up, and this is not something I have any interest in making. So I don't want to mess this up. I want that to work. So time to get to chopping and grinding. There's the hole. I ground away a bunch on the outside because like whatever this is, it won't be nice to weld to, and it's easier to grind it away now. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this again, and then we will pull the wastegate tubes up close, run a bunch of tacks, and we'll pull it out and finish weld it, and then the wastegate recirc will be done. Love it when a plan comes together. There's the cut. Pull it tight. Oh my goodness. And it's perfect all the way around. So we will pull the welder over, tack that in right there, like a ton. Look at that fit up. Look at that coping fit up, incredible. Just gonna, acetone this down, tack it up a ton, and we'll be like home stretch for the wastegates, which is the almost last big project next to the catch can. So nothing beautiful, but there are 5 tacks on there now, and the fit up is where I want it, which is good. That first tack, like trying to hold it and tack it, for some reason it just never likes to go. So that's fit, tacked up. I'm gonna remove that setup again from the car, weld it off the car, throw it back on, and we will be done with the wastegate system. Would you just look at that? Ooh. It is installed. Tight fit, very tight fit. You have to like put this clamp on loosely, do the clamp under there just to get that alignment right, and then before you tighten this, put these 2 in and then tighten this. It's all centered up, it's good. I haven't actually tightened these yet, but not a big deal. I'll do that right now. This is in, that's installed. The oil feed line for the turbo I did while I was there, so I tapped in, I had like a T thing, you can see right there, for the dummy oil pressure sender. So I removed the sender, put the T in, put the fitting in the end or on the side, and then put the dummy sensor back on the end. So that is in, and it is clear of the downpipe, so it's like way above it. There's probably, if I have to stick my hand in there, which it is, I don't know, like 2 inches of space over it, so we're not going to overheat that. Oil drain is clear, and I can make more room, and I will make more room because it'll come over this way once I put the 30 degree on there. I did get a 30 degree yesterday, but it was that nasty, so it was right on the floor. It was this. I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm not 90 years old. I'm never gonna use that fitting. So I have a black one coming because the black ones look cooler. and cleaner. So we're gonna, once that shows up on like Wednesday, we'll cut this, put that over there. And then last big thing is the catch can and figuring out the intake, you know, plumbing and routing and stuff like that. You guys ready for this update? It's been, I think, a week probably. I'm not entirely sure where I left off, but I have the pipes back from powder coat. I've figured out the injectors. They're on their way. They should be here in a couple days. The intake manifold is on and installed. The exhaust is done. Built the downpipe, all that stuff. Wastegate recirculation is done. And, well, today I checked a lot of little things off the list and like home stretch status right now. So I'm gonna reveal you the 90% finished engine bay. It looks so good. So, gloss black powder coated charge piping is like my favorite. I have it on my K-Swap, K-Swap Miata. And it's just like, it's kind of tough to keep clean, but it is perfection when it is clean. So this is all installed. Everything you see here, I put some rubber trim around the boxes. So those are nice and tight. And then, come on, focus. These have play, so there we go. With the O-rings in, it's kind of tight. This is the same. This has play, and then this lower charge pipe has play as well. Not as much, but still more than enough. And then obviously this is hard mounted, so the only play is between these two. And then that play is, you know, this doesn't matter because this is free moving, and so is that. Headlights back in, plugged in. I grounded the wiring harness that comes over here down in here. You probably can't see it now, but it's grounded up in there. I plugged in the, what I'm assuming is the corner marker light. Both of them are plugged in underneath, so it's all tucked away and hidden. Started running vacuum lines. So if you're wondering, the Skunk 2 uses 1/8 NPT and 1/4 NPT fittings. So it's got a bunch of each. And right now I've got two 1/8 NPT 90s and two 1/4 NPT straights. So one of them goes from here to the blow-off valve. And then I've got these like zinc hose clamps on there. And then down there, it's kind of tough to see. There's one on like the side section that runs around up to the fuel rail. So this is also strapped on here. This is the Radium S2000 regulator on the Skunk 2 rail. Comes with this nice fitting, so like this is actually swivelable. We got it with a gauge, and right now I have a 90 6AN that's not hooked up to anything right now. I'm converting the return line with some of these. I think they're called ferrules, I don't know. This crushes in between, converts a hard line to an AN. I accidentally bought 3/8. I think it's 5/16. I have 5/16 and a 1/4 inch coming just in case. The pipe is already cut underneath, so it's just a matter of crimping it, and then I gotta figure out what other end I want to put for the 6AN, but that's like a 10-minute fix. The feed is here, just not plugged in. Injectors, I emailed Skunk finally. Everything I could see said that it wanted 14mm injectors, and all the S2000 forums and groups were like kind of not giving me a solid answer. So K-series injectors fit is what everybody told me. And it happens that K-series injectors and 06 to 09 S2000, which is like the JDM AP2 injectors, are the same size. So if you buy, and then when I emailed Skunk, I was like, hey, is this built for 06 to 09? I can't find injectors that fit. And the person emailed me back and said, yes, it's 06 to 09 design. So I ordered, or Joel ordered some 1650cc, which is like any bigger than 1700, you won't really be able to have good streetability with a single rail. So we opted for 1650s from Fuel Injector Clinic. And then the rail setup will be done So the rest of the lines that we've got, there's another 3/8 straight down here that goes to whatever. I'm not entirely sure what it is or if it's needed. There's like a vacuum block on the side of the, or like a sensor or something that used to run into here and one of the other vacuum lines coming out of the old valve cover. So I just put a 3/8 barb there, put that T back into it so that whatever sensor still gets a signal. And then the 3/8 that we welded onto the charge piping is gonna go to idle air control, which, thanks to Rivnuts, is living down there. So that's it right there. It's bolted to the fender well. It's really tough to see. I kind of wanted it tucked out of the way so it's not this like eyesore floating piece, but it's Rivnutted and bolted up. It's secure. This is the K-Power kit for remote idle air. I'm waiting on the 2 fittings that I had ordered. They'll be here tomorrow, but I did confirm, if you are curious, the plug, they use like a Honda Element or something like that, idle air control. It's the same plug as the factory S2000, so it's plug and play. I just need the fittings, so the one line from here runs into the one side, it says like intake, and then it'll go from the other side, which is manifold, through this line into this 3/8 port right here. I'm also waiting on some clamps for this. Normally on an NA setup you wouldn't clamp it because it's just atmospheric pressure, but since this is boosted, if we don't put a clamp on that, it's going to blow off. Yeah, and I think I showed you guys this wastegate merge setup. I did, definitely showed you that. So what happened is I went to go put the exhaust on and the muffler tip was like way pushed into the opening. So I actually fixed the down pipe, or the mid pipe section that we built. And this is much easier to install now. It's a much easier fit. Everything snaps up nice. Something I really should have done. So everything's coming together. We are making good progress. I have tons of parts. So over here I've got some 0 gauge wire, red and black, master switches, the ones that you can like reset, a bunch of crimps, some heat shrink, some 0 gauge lug like connectors. And what we're gonna do with that is I'm going to chop that battery setup and then lug it through to the new 0 gauge wire, run it through to the trunk, and remote mount the battery, because there's just no space here, and like we don't really want a battery near all that heat. But those are all little details in my opinion. The biggest last thing is the catch can, which is gonna go here, I think, still. And this valve cover is not the one that's gonna be on the car. Obviously there's another one. I believe it's an AP2 cover, I'm not sure. I deleted this bung. This port is gone. I literally put a plate over it, welded it, ground it to match. You can't see it. So it's sleek. It is getting wrinkle red and like OEM Honda spec. And then it's got 2 breather ports here and here, which is a little close to this for my liking, but we'll run some either, maybe we'll run some of this line for it. And that's gonna run over to the catch can right here. Just a nice short run. That's the plan. So that's where we're at right now. It looks unreal to me to finally look at this with some progress. Without the piping in there, you're like, man, I got a lot of work left to do. In reality, I don't. Like if I probably took Monday and Tuesday off of work and I had all the parts, this thing would be ready to probably fire. I'm gonna be honest, I've done a couple things off camera, and by a couple things I mean pretty much everything to wrap this car up. So I'm gonna show you where we are at. And I'm gonna walk you through all the things that I've done, so this way if you're doing this to your own car, you're not just watching this video for no reason, you'll actually learn something, and hopefully it'll help you with your S2000. So for starters, the injectors are in, and I did a lot of hunting to figure out what injectors this took. If you have this throttle body, it is both, because they're the same injector, 2006 to 2009 S2000, so it's AP2 JDM, or K-Series. If you look on websites, they'll say K-Series /0609 S2000. Those are the right ones. They fit. There is movement room and all that stuff, which is important, but they cannot go up or down, so those are correct. I modified the harness to accept the pins. Just buy the jumper harness that comes with it. These are from Fuel Injector Clinic, 1650 cc's. After that, we've got idle air control, which is down here. I just extended the factory wiring harness. It uses the factory plug, even if you're using the K-Power Industries idle air control that uses like a different Honda idle air control sensor. It's the same plug. Map sensor, or sorry, that is intake air temperature is there. It's kind of tough to see. It's that tan plug. Just extended the harness there a little bit just to reach this location. TPS, I stole the one off of the stock throttle body. It has really weird screws that you can't undo, so all I did is cut a line through it, and then I could use a flathead and it came right out. Super easy. Whatever this guy is, I don't know, it's just been sitting here forever, so that's plugged in, just use the factory stud. And then the map sensor is down here. This is a Skunk 3-bar, and it just uses the factory plug right there. Throttle cable, I think I already went over that. This is my bracket design. I do have a bunch of those, so if you want one, reach out to me and I can get one ready for you. Radiator, this was a little tight like we talked about. You can see there's now a gap there. I just took a piece and did a 10-degree kick over and bead rolled the end, and that's it. Fit up, no crazy. I was gonna do like a second hole right here, but this was easier and cleaner in my opinion because it keeps everything out of the way. So that's pretty much it for this side. Oh, the one thing I forgot to put a port on for the Skunk 2 was the brake master setup. So I just teed off the idle air control piece and just ran a T into it. Goes into here. This has a check valve, so you can't just run a regular hose. It's somewhere here. But yeah, it's right there. There's a little bulge. That's the check valve. You cannot get rid of that, otherwise you will apply boost to your brake master and you'll have a really bad time when you try to brake. Let's see, everything is plugged in. I know I could have deleted that purge valve that you guys saw me run a wire to, or a hose to earlier. We'll get to that in a second. Technically it is deleted. But obviously the valve cover is different. This is the one that I modified. There's usually a port right here, a breather port. I put a plate over it, shaved it. You literally cannot see it. This is just wrinkled red. Little gets dirty easy kinda, but plugs right in. A couple things I'm still working on, I'm not done yet. And then his is vented over here. This was done before I got it, so it's a little weird spot. It's a little close to the exhaust manifold for my liking, but that's why we ran braided stainless line instead of like the black, regular black 10AN line. And then I'll get to the catch can in a second. The wastegates are wired in, or plumbed in, I guess, and wired in. If you're trying to figure out how to do this, with duals, it's the same as single, but it's a little complicated because there's two of them. So, from the boost controller, you have port 1 on the right, port 2 on the left, and then port 3 is this breather. Port 1, on the one side, you need to run both from the, there's like a sensor, let's see if I can see it. There's a port on the turbo, and then that goes also to the bottom of both wastegates. So this port and this port, you can pick any of the three on the tile as long as you cap the other ones. Those are all teed together in this kind of mess. I don't really love this, but it's better than what was here earlier, so, or what came with the car. And then those just run back to here. So it's pretty much this port to bottom, and turbo. Center is a breather like we talked about, and then port 2, if you had a single, it would just go to the top. We have duals, so it just goes into a Y fitting, and then to each. These are 1/4 inch push connects, 1/8 MPT threads into the block, or 1/8 common thread, I guess, is also the same thing. I'm hoping this holds up to the heat pretty well. It's far enough, there's a big air gap here. I'm hoping there's no issues. This is all cold area, and there's like airflow from the front of the car, so hopefully we're okay. And then wiring for this, he is running a Honda K-Pro V4, I believe, same one I have in my K-Swap. And with that, so I ran the two wires here, the non-polarized, it doesn't matter which one is signal or power. Runs all the way up here. You can see the line right there. Runs down, comes up through here, and then tees into the OEM purge system. So the purge solenoid that I plumbed in over here is now useless and unplugged. But there are two wires that come out of there. I found it on a forum. It's, let's see if I can see them. It's black with yellow and like red with yellow, I think. You just tee into those, and then you can tell the K-Pro that that is your electronic boost controller, and it's done. You don't have to like wire anything into the car. Nothing weird like that. Made wiring that in very simple. And then for those of you curious, if I pull this cable out here, there's a plug underneath the fender that you can pull through into the cabin or into the engine bay, unplug, and take the boost controller out. It's not hardwired in. Serviceability is pretty important. I know this is mostly like a show car setup, but show cars that suck to work on, just they suck in general. So that is all wrapped up. I did the battery mostly. So I followed a video. If you search S2000 battery relocation, it pops up. So I left the lug on from the factory terminal, and then I put a lug on the 0 gauge wire, and then put a bolt through it, bolted them together, and then these are like Tessa taped or whatever it's called together. And then pulled it through the firewall, which I'm not gonna be able to show you. Ran it through the passenger side door like jam. Underneath there's like a plastic tube that you can run the wire through really nicely. And that goes to the trunk, which I'll show you in a second. It's currently a mess back here, but he does have air ride, so I just essentially pulled the factory wire back, or the airbag wire back. Mind all the shavings from the wire cutting, but I'm not done back here yet, so I don't want to clean it up. You can see that 0 gauge wire coming back in from there. It goes to this 100 amp breaker, which I actually, the guys in the video use it. It's really nice. So if you ever want to disconnect your battery without like undoing the terminal, you just push it. It's 100 amp, you can get 200 amps, 300 amps, there's all sorts, and then you just run power through, and then power from this terminal here up to the battery, and then the negative from the battery is gonna go to that stud right there. So, very simple. Once you get the battery wire back here, I am waiting on a tray that my buddy Johnny from 9 Lives is sending me. I'll show you guys that when that gets here. It's billet aluminum base and top. It's super nice. So we'll get the battery mounted in. So I know I told you guys I would take you along for the catch can build. I got carried away last weekend and did it just while I was doing other stuff. This is it. So it is 1/8 inch plate steel, or plate aluminum, sorry, with a 1.5 inch breather, 2 10AN bungs, and then this 6AN on the bottom is a drain. If like you have to take it out of the car to drain it, but it's just nice to have a drain. This mounts over here, so it uses that factory bolt hole, and there's another one over there. I'll install it and show you guys, and then obviously those 2 catch can lines run to it. It was pretty easy. I used cardboard just to mock it up, and then I cut all the pieces out of cardboard and welded them together. This was tricky, so this, I don't want to call it a curve because it's like 4 angles, but I took the steel, I took the aluminum, put it in my vise, and took a mallet, and just kept hammering it, bending it, bending it until it fit. And it fit really nice actually when I was done. That accounts for that curvature of the fender liner. You can see like that. And the capacity, it's not a ton. Hopefully you don't need a ton. If you are blowing a ton of oil into your catch can, you got other problems. And internally, it is baffled because I make catch cans for the Miatas, they're in the basement, but I cut one of the baffle plates up, and so like right about here, there is a plate that is solid on the bottom and it has a bunch of holes like up top. You can't really see it, even if it's like tough to get the angle, so I can't show you, but it is baffled in there. And the nice thing is, like, the oil's gonna wanna go down, it's not gonna wanna come over, and even if it does slosh up, there's a solid plate to stop it from getting underneath the filter. This is a low profile filter because there's not a whole lot of space over there. I built the can and I put one of my regular filters in and it did not clear. That's why there's low profile 10AN fittings. It does clear the hood. I just finished welding this up. And then I've got my little N tag on there at Joel's request because he was like, you gotta put your name on it somewhere. So catch can tucked in the corner. I think it's cleaner without it anywhere else. So I've been talking for a long time. I'm gonna install this, show you guys what it looks like when it's installed, and then, oh, one more thing. Before I install it, the exhaust had no O2 bungs, so now it has two up here. They're kind of hidden, like you won't see them from the front of the car, but you can access them from here. So like I can get a wrench in those, I can get a wrench in there and tighten all that up. So serviceability again is huge. That's easy, it's nice and tucked up. I just added those like 10 minutes ago. So we are getting very close to the end. If we look at the list, come on, focus. Battery relocation, oil catch can, add oil coolant, and then pretty much start it. Catch can is now done. So pretty much battery relocation, which I'm just gonna make the wires tonight. The plate probably won't show up until Monday. And then add oil coolant. I have oil. I will grab coolant tomorrow. It has gas in it. Hopefully it's not ethanol or anything old. And then it's see if it fires up. We can fire it up without the battery relocation plate. So we will be trying that this weekend. I'm nervous. I hate like first starts. This has been a pretty extensive build. So there's always likely something that is not correct. But let's throw the catch can in. Call that a day. I'll show you that. Ideally it would get powder coated, but not right now. And then hopefully this car will be out of here in a couple days and I can have the track car back. So, oh, bumper has to go back on, but very close. I'm gonna stop talking. Voila. You can see this sits well below the lip here. Kind of tough to see. It sits below this, which is the most important thing. The other filter sat like this high, and there's cutouts and stuff in the hood for this, but not for this. So this is in. You can see the lines are there. This stuff is less than ideal to work with because it's very tight. So it's not like the other 10AN where you can like bend it and tweak it. So it is a necessity though, because I've run these over turbo manifolds with just regular AN line and it like melts and splits, and you don't want oil dropping on your turbo manifold. It's bad news. Another thing that I do like though is so there is a little bit of an upward slope, and those either run catch cans if they're filling up quickly. If you can angle your AN fittings so that like it's like valve cover, then it comes up a little bit, it will return some of that back in instead of sending it all to your catch can, and then just the vapor will go to the catch can like intended. So it's not my ideal setup for all this, but for what was there with the porting and all that, it's the best setup that I can think of. So I like it. It's tucked away. It's not too close to this. There's like, you know, there's like a big hand's width there between the two. I'm not worried about it. I run them closer on the turbo cars, on the Turbo Miata. So that's pretty much it. We gotta do the battery wiring, throw the bumper on, and add oil and coolant and try to start it. So I'm gonna get the bumper on. We're not gonna run the grill. It's just not too much to trim. I'm gonna do that right now, and then it'll just be the battery wiring and oil. So I'll show you guys the car with the bumper on. I'm not gonna peel this off until we are ready to party, because I'm sure I'll be leaning in the engine bay and stuff. So let's get the bumper on. Bumper is on. So much easier than a Miata to install. And if I do say so myself, oh yeah, she's ready to eat. That thing just sticking out there. I cut all of this out. This part is technically attached to the bumper, so I just chopped it off. Yeah, that looks, let me just close the hood real quick. It's been a long time. See that coming up behind you, and you know you're in for some business. If he wanted to make this a sleeper, I would tell him to powder coat that black. But it being a show car, he wants the wow effect. he's got it. So we are so close. I'm so excited. It's gonna look so good. I can't wait to see it rolling down the hill. Once my first start anxiety is over, we'll be much better. But yeah, this looks awesome. So all that's left now, tomorrow I gotta get some coolant. We'll add coolant, we'll add oil, and I'll run the 2 battery lines. But I'm done for the night.
The next day.
We are almost ready to start. This video is so long I cannot remember where I've left off. I know we did the catch can last time, so that is in. I ran the battery lines, which I'll show you. It's kind of temporary right now just because I don't 100% know where I'm going to put the battery mount. We added coolant. So this is just like a bleeder thing from Lyle. It's nice because you can overfill, and then as it sucks in coolant, it will pull it down with it, and you won't get air pockets. I've checked. There's no dripping right now. So there's nothing leaking yet. It's always a fear of mine is that something's going to leak, like oil feed or whatever. But it's full of coolant. I added oil. It is right up to the dipstick. I have a spare quart of 5W30 just because, like, as it primes, you know, as this fills, the turbo, the drain, the oil filter, it's going to be a little low, so I want to top it up, make sure we're full. Everything should be wired in. Let me show you the trunk. I haven't hooked the battery up yet, but... So, I've got the power lug, which is just one of these little Johnnies that opens up, sets on the power. Positive is here, negative is run to there, and then right now the loom is just sitting here. The plan is, once we get it mounted, I'm going to run the power, or both cables likely, back behind this, and then just punch a hole, and they'll both come up over the top of the battery here. So I'm going to get my laptop ready. They sent us a bass tune. I'm going to go over everything one more time, just a visual check, and then I'm going to start playing with the tune and see if we can't get it to fire up. Mind the buzzing, his air tank is filling up. It's at like 100 PSI. It should shut off soon, I think. I don't know what it runs to, but big shout out to Evans Tuning. It is Sunday at like 3 p.m. and I couldn't get the file from Joel, or we had issues with the email back and forth. I emailed Evans Tuning thinking I wouldn't get a response till tomorrow, and Jeff, who I'm assuming is the owner, Jeff Evans, hit me back within like half an hour and sent me the tune. So that's great. I have it uploaded. I'll show you. Hopefully you can hear over the compressor. So he already did pretty much everything. You can see fuel injectors were 1650s. Closed loop disabled, so it's not going to read a wideband. It's just going to go off what the fuel table tells it to. Boost control. B21 is the purge control solenoid, I believe. So that should be hooked up correctly already. We're not going to hit boost or anything, but and then all I did was go to the throttle, key is on, so you can see the dashboard's lit up. Compressor is running still, but I read at 0 throttle, read at max throttle, and then you just upload. And yeah, so you can see we are reading. This is all correct. This compressor is going to murder this battery, but we should be good to go. I'm going to wait until the compressor stops so you guys can, so I can hear other noises. I don't want to have to listen to the compressor while I'm trying to listen to other stuff. Also good news, no fuel leaks, so this is tight. The pressure is kind of low right now just because this might be too low, honestly, and then the lines were empty, so I'm sure it took some time to fill up, because the first time I cranked it over, it was at like 2 PSI, and then now it's at 18 PSI, so sorry if you can't see that. I'm gonna key off and key on again and see if it comes up higher. I'm gonna target, I believe it's 43.5 PSI, so whatever I gotta adjust this to hit 43.5, we'll do that. And then I'm assuming that's what he set base pressure to. If it's running really weird, we might turn it up a little bit, but otherwise everything's good. I don't see any leaks anywhere. There's no coolant leaks. That's been sitting for a couple hours now. It has oil in it. we will crank it, and once it fires or once it cranks for a while, we'll check oil again, make sure whatever's bled through the system is good, and then it's, you know, if it runs, it runs, and if it doesn't, we'll do some digging. But from the install side, there's no reason it shouldn't fire up. So my worst fear was fluid leaks from fuel and oil. So fuel's good, oil, we'll see. The turbo feed is always questionable, just where it is, and of course it's in the worst spot to tighten. So I'm gonna figure out when that shuts off, and I'll pick you guys back up so we can try to start this thing. Definitely not enough fuel pressure. It's still at like 20 psi, which is why it struggled. So give me a minute. Okay, it's right around 45 to 50 psi. Once it's running, I can go in and tweak it up or down. Pro tip, tuck your hoodie strings in before you do stuff like this. So let's go. And of course the battery's dead. Get the jump box. Third time's the charm. Jump box is in the back, should have more than enough cranking power. It was probably too low that it wouldn't fire the spark, so it would just not start. Well, it runs, sounds smooth. Not sure why it won't stay running. It's probably just something with the tune, something's not plugged in. It could be the wideband issue. But it starts, it sounds nice. I didn't try to like throttle it or anything like that. Very happy me. Time to go look for oil leaks, see what's going on. But I think once we get the battery tray in, this thing's a wrap. So it runs. I've never had a car that just fires up on the base map. Beautiful. So the first start issue of it not starting at all was just a fuel thing. There was no, like, not enough fuel pressure for it to fire up. There might still not be enough for it to run long. Maybe that's the issue we're having, but I'm gonna go back and forth with Jeff this week, maybe probably just tomorrow, and see if he understands what's going on. Maybe it's the wideband, maybe it's something else, but it didn't sound like there were any leaks from like exhaust side of view, so that was good. I'm gonna do a quick sweep over, see if there's any oil leaks, but I didn't see anything underneath. Coolant seems, it's obviously not bled because it hasn't run, but coolant, there were no leaks when I filled it. There's no fuel leaks, so we are pretty much done. I'm waiting on the battery box, which I will show you guys when it shows up. That'll be the last part of this video. And then this thing is off to get tuned. It is March 12th. It is hitting the dyno March 30th. I don't know when this video is coming out. And then it might get sold. He might have a buyer for it already when he hasn't even driven on the street. So, is what it is the car he wants to buy is way cooler than this, so hopefully I get my hands on that. But this is done, and I'll see you guys when I do the battery tray. It is D-Day or delivery day or whatever. He's picking up his S2000 today, so we've got some things to go over. And then I'm gonna do a once-over of like everything we did on the car, plus the things we added just now. So I got the battery box, so we're gonna go over that first. I want to give a big shout out to Johnny over at 9 Lives Racing. If you do any track stuff, you know them. They make like the best aero for S2000s, Miatas, Corvettes, maybe even a K-Swap MR2, I'm not sure. But hit him up if you need anything milled. He just bought a mill and he's like itching to do stuff. And the quality on this is really, really nice. So I designed the base and a top bracket. He took it, modified it, pocketed it out. I mean, look at that light weighting. So obviously he's all about lightweight, fast, whatever, as an aero guy. So I figured who else to make the coolest battery box for this S2000 than somebody who does cool stuff like cool aero. So if you've seen our track car, you know it looks sick. Same guy. So I'm going to show you how this goes together. The nice thing is this mounts into the trunk. I'm just going to drill holes in the floor with these countersunk bolts. And then it sits below the surface, so it won't affect the battery. It won't like push up into the battery or anything like that. And then if you want to take the battery out in the trunk, you can just unscrew these threaded rods and it slides out the side. So just for show purposes, battery fits in there. I don't know if this is an OEM battery. It's OEM size for sure for an S2000. You put these little rods in. It's kind of tough to do one-handed. Put this clamp on, which says Napp mode on it, which is sick. And then you just throw 4 or 3 M6 nuts on top, and it clamps it down. Like, you could flip this car over, and this would be the only thing that's still standing. We're gonna install this quick. I'll just show you when it's in the trunk. I gotta still vacuum the trunk out. And then I'll do a once over of everything. This is the last thing I have to do to the car. So let me do that quick. I'll show you, and then we'll go start to finish on the car, what's been done, and kind of what's next for it. So here it is, mounted in the trunk. You can see both logos. So there's the Napp Moto, and then down there is the 9 Lives logo. And no, I still have not vacuumed. I ran power and ground like kind of behind it. You can see it here. It's a little weird, but he's gonna totally redo his trunk setup. They're gonna like push the air ride back up in there so he has a usable trunk. I figured I'd leave those long so that if they want to move that or whatever. Also, this thing is like the best thing I've ever added. When we were working on tuning it, and I was done for the night, I would just boop, push it. Needed to add, pull a fuse to add a boost gauge, whatever. Pop it. Don't have to remove. No tools, nothing like that. Super efficient. Also, like, this thing is stout. Super, like, that's not going anywhere at all. This one, it's nice because you can't really reach the bolt back here just based on where I put it. But I put that one in first, threaded it on until it was like flush, pushed the cover down, threaded these 2 on, and then as it pulls it, it will tighten. So all 3 are tight now, which is great. Pretty much done back here, minus vacuuming. So I'm going to give you guys a walkthrough of everything we've done to this car. There's some changes inside too. So for starters, Schmuck built T4 divided turbo manifold with dual 38mm wastegates. These are just tile 38 mils. Precision 76 something, Gen 2, AR 0.81 on the hot side housing. That goes to a Vibrant Vangeon clamp through to just a turbo guard on the other side of this wall here, just to keep it like symmetrical. And then down from the bottom, we've got another Vangeon clamp welded onto the compressor outlet. That runs down to the intercooler over here, this side. It's like pie cuts like you saw earlier. Keep it flush so we don't have to like modify any of the bumper. And then through the intercooler, same here. So 3-inch out of there, down in, and then it's 3.5-inch out of this end tank, through up behind the headlight, and then into this box, which is just like a space maker, I guess is the best way to put it. So that curves up, meets the box, and then from the box it goes through another HD clamp up into the skunk. I believe it's a 90mm throttle body. We've got a tile blow-off valve here that's just routed to the intake manifold. A line here for idle air control, which goes down to a K-Power idle air control remote piece, which is down there. So it's in and then out to the manifold. We have intake air temp sensor, fuel pressure, the boost line for the boost gauge inside is tapped into there as well. All that is in a Skunk 2 Ultra Race manifold. I don't recommend this piece. I'm just going to be flat out honest. Very hard to install. The quality is a little meh. There's other options out there. I'm going to be installing a Prackworks one on a different car shortly here, which is all carbon fiber. Way more expensive, but way, way nicer and way more complete. That uses their Skunk 2 fuel rail, which comes with this. And then we have a radium feed over here. Radium has like an adapter kit for AP1 and AP2, they're different. This is an AP1 adapter kit that taps into the stock fuel lines. And then over here, we have the radium rail mount fuel pressure regulator, which is like on a nice swivel. That goes to a return line, and I cut off the old return line, it's a 1/4 inch line. So did a ferrule like crimp fitting. So it's all AN return. Boost reference comes back and tees in down here into the manifold. You can put the ports wherever. And then it is running AP2 2006 to 2009 fuel injectors. So if you have this manifold and you're not sure, those are the fuel injectors that it runs. Same as a same as a K24. But if you go on like Fuel Injector Clinic, it'll say K Series /0609 S2000. Those are the right ones for Skunk 2. So 1650cc injectors through here from Fuel Injector Clinic. 2004 to 5 AP2 valve cover. Not a big difference, just a little bit. It's a little dirty right now just because I was working around it. And then that is dual vented on this side to a catch can that I whipped up. This is just vent to atmosphere. There is a drain on the bottom if he ever wants to drain it without removing it. What else am I forgetting? Stock throttle position sensor. A throttle bracket that I made because this setup does not come with an option for one. And then down here it is running the Skunk 2 map sensor. Just 4-bar. I would recommend the Honda one. The Honda one is great. I actually have one over there that I test fitted to make sure the issues we were having with idle wasn't the map sensor. But I recently swapped out the crank position sensor, which was a little tricky. I had to depin the sensor to feed it down. It has, I gotta pull these back up. It has spoon, upper and lower radiator hoses, and this intercooler is a Vibrant 3.5 inch core, I believe. I custom made the end tanks myself. Battery relocation to the trunk, as you guys just saw. And then it has a tapped oil pan, or welded oil pan that I put the bung on. First thing I did was swap oil pans on this. That feels like so long ago. And then DC5Creations AC Relocation. If you're doing this, I ran these like not wrong, but different than they would suggest. He suggests you come up from the bottom and then feed it over instead of like this extra slack that I have. I did it because that way the lines run in parallel. Not a big deal. This beauty plate that is dirty just bolts in. I don't know where they got it from, but from what I can tell, there's a ton of different options to get your own from tons of different places. Electronic boost controller. This is wired into the purge solenoid, which is over here. It's this wiring harness. It's got 2 wires in it. If you go back, you can see where I tapped into that. And then we've got just the wastegate lines, upper lower from the turbo manifold. I go over that earlier. And then I ran the wiring like all the way through here. It's all tucked in, but it is unpluggable over here. But that way to keep it clean, you can't see it. And then for downpipe stuff, we have 3-inch downpipe. This came with the kit. This is from Schmuck Built. I did the wastegate tie-ins myself, and then I made that mid pipe that runs, the flange was like here, so that runs from there to the Renegade Motorsports exhaust that we also installed. It's all V-band, well, V-band, V-band, and V-band, and then the Renegade stuff is bolt flange. I added O2 sensors, and you can see I actually installed the O2 sensor there. So this is an AEM UEGO, it's like 30-0300. Ran that over here, line traces up over across, and then I punched a hole through the OEM grommet down there and ran both boost reference and the wideband line, which needs to be tucked back in, through there, so it's all like tucked away and hidden nice. I hate having like wires running across that don't need to be there. Like This I'm not a huge fan of, but I didn't want to pinch or twist anything. Almost forgot. Mishimoto radiator with some custom titanium retainers. If you want your radiator held closer to your crash bar for whatever reason, let me know. I actually have another set of these and I can get more of them made pretty quick. Dual slim fan setup on the Mishimoto shroud, riv nutted fans so that they can be removed easily. And then obviously 4AN oil feed off of the pressure sensor location and a 10AN drain just into the factory drain spot. I think that's all I did up here. Oh, I did that like weird. So there's a fuse box relocation that turns this sideways, and then this bracket here to turn the heater core hoses sideways, but retain functionality because otherwise it would be too close to the hot stuff. So that I believe is it for out here. Now that I talk about it, it seems like not a whole lot, but it's been a long month and a half. So, oh, and hood struts, very important. Inside this beautiful interior, I just recently did these gauges. Don't mind that there's a duplicate. This one needs to be removed. Air to fuel ratio and boost, if that'll focus. And then when you sit in the driver's seat, the steering wheel's crooked right now, but they are right in your line of sight, which is really nice. And they pop in where the cruise control thing, and that was a blank plate. A little tight with the wiper arms, if we're being honest, but it all still works. It's just like you have to like perfectly set it. Does look very cool though, and I don't think he uses his wipers a whole lot, so not a big deal. That's it for in here. That was like last night, just real quick, just threw those in. I used an add a fuse, grounded it. It's not wired into the ECU right now, but it is there in case they want to add it. I'll get into the ECU stuff in a second. And then back here is just the battery and the battery relocation. So makes it seem like not a whole lot of work, but it is definitely a whole lot of work. It took a lot of time, a lot of custom fab work stuff, which is what I love to do, so I'm not complaining, but it has been here since January 25th. It is March 18th. So it's been here for a while. It is getting picked up tonight. I'm gonna play with the tune a little bit. He's not running a Honda or pure Honda. He's running like I'm gonna butcher it, Ballad Motorsports, a conversion plug and play thing, so you don't have to like full AP2 convert your car. And we believe that the adjuster box that they put in there is causing issues. So I replaced the crank sensor, switched map sensors yesterday, did a bunch of stuff to rule that out. It is running pig rich right now that I have a wideband, so I'm going to pull some fuel out, play with idle air control, and do some things like that, just to make sure that it is running as like I've done my, cross my T's and dotted my I's. For this episode, that is going to be a wrap. I will either post a short, or if I haven't edited this video by the time it gets it tuned, I will add like a dyno pole or two in the end and tell you how much power it made. But he's shooting for 500 or 600 horsepower, so if you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate you sticking it out for this long. It's probably another long episode, just like the engine build. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2 hours. If you're local to Rochester and you need fab work done or close to Rochester, I do charge piping. I'll show you the MR2 in a second. I do charge piping, down pipes, that kind of stuff. I'm not looking to take on another build this big. Like just, a couple days, probably a week type job. I'm trying to expand into that stuff instead of just making parts. I love doing the custom fab stuff, custom intakes, charge pipes, down pipes. I don't do exhausters yet because I don't have a lift. Hit me up. You can send me an email. You can message me on Instagram. Message me personally on Facebook. I'll answer everybody, and we can talk through it. We can see what we can do for you, and like this MR2. I'll show you this MR2. There's no video on this. This is just got dropped off like 2 days ago. It is a K24 with a precision 6266. So it came to me with no charge piping and no down pipe, and the intercooler wasn't mounted. So it has a trunk mounted intercooler. It does have a trunk, it's in the basement. And then this is technically a Sidewinder kit off of like a front wheel drive Honda K-swap, but it'll work. So charge piping, it'll get an intake. It'll have a custom down pipe to his Blitz muffler, which is over there. Should be a pretty fun little project, probably a couple days of work. I already did the charge piping, the intake will be quick, and then just really gotta do the downpipe. So this is the kind of stuff I love doing. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you have any requests of what you want to see me work on, I'm not trying to video every build because it takes a long time. But if I do something cool, I can and will video it for you guys. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see more. And I will see you when we start the bike build, which I have a lot of parts in the basement. And I mean this, hopefully should be the next video series. So thanks again. See you later.